we're not getting what humans always thought was key, the bone broth. 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 Well, now it's the next level of that. It's caveman. I need a glass of caveman. Caveman. Man. It's better than Ovaltine. Better than Ovaltine. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Caveman is just over the top. What in the world? But now with the milk, I was like, whoa, this has milk in it. Whoa. It tastes like good. Man, this tastes so good. Tastes like the best milkshake ever. It tastes like Ovaltine. It tastes like Ovaltine. It tastes like Ovaltine. Like good. It tastes like Ovaltine. It tastes like Ovaltine. It tastes like Ovaltine. Like good. Whoa.
This is, I can say without a doubt, at least in my experience, that this is literally...
This is a super home run available at InfoWarsLife.com, and it supports the broadcast. All right, all the big news straight ahead. Thanks, Buckley. The paradigm of absolute control. And that's why we're just out here doing simple things, pointing out that we're meant to be in nature and be natural. And this is where we find the source that God made to transcend the New World Order. And that's why they want to try to keep us out of it.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murderers, scum, and giant death factories keeping babies alive and selling their body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I go out and face these scum. They literally crawl out from under rocks. They have green looking skin and they run around screaming, we love Satan, we want to eat babies. I have them on video. Hillary's in the creepy, weird, sick stuff, man. She sleeps in the same room with that creepy, weird woman whose mother wears a hood over her head. What the hell? That woman number one is ugly. Imagine how bad she smells, man. I told her and Obama just stink. Obama and Hillary both smell like sulfur. Literal vampire pot and the goblins hobbling round coming after us. My spirit gets close to that evil and I feel it go. You're such self-centered crap. We don't even notice hell itself rising up against us. Millions of pointed people of the very worst type, and I'm so pissed. We're gonna stare your daughter at the mall. We're gonna stare your wife, your son. We're gonna stab you with a butcher knife, and then the police chief is gonna say, we love our Somalis, we love our Muslims, oh they're so good, oh they're so sweet.
Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
So you wanna be Antifa? We're taking down the West. Unless your mom finds your bandana, she'll never guess. Even though you're anti-fascist, can you act like a fascist if you need to? Ooh, that's bad. Never talk to the camera, there is nobody that you should ever speak to. And we're the anti-fat kid, cause you're gonna get hit. So you wanna be Antifa, you wanna change the world. Be like Yvette Flocka, what an amazing girl. Keep covering your face when you cover them in mace, let me tell you. When the right try to talk, you can use a bike block to defend you. I wear a black outfit, so they know who to hit. Come on down to Berkeley, get on from the beach. You can punch a Nazi if he's using free speech. You'll never catch us, we're anonymous. Find a random signpost, kick it all around. Find a random trash can, burn it to the ground. What point do you prove when garbage is moved? We don't know. wanna be a commie with full government. And you'd also like anarchy with no government. It's pretty much the same, no, it's definitely not a contradiction. Don't be questioning our logic, and I'm sure you'll make a great new addition. Cause you might as well quit if you question it. This is revolution, this isn't just a game. So wear your little outfit and use a fake name. Trust us, we're the left. We deserve respect. We hate all the racists, fascists on the right. Even though our members all happen to be white. That isn't the point. The point is that we are heroes.
Under the shadow of the new Praetorian.
Well, I tried to do the intro this time. I don't know how it's going to come out till I go back and look at the replay. I'm hoping that it was just slick as snot on a doorknob, you know? I mean, I hope it just came across like played 3 songs and then, you know, the intro that the British actually made that intro for me. A lot of y'all probably know that, but I haven't made an intro for myself yet. I mean, the Brits made the 2 that I use, and that is my favorite. And it's not because it's even a reflection or representation of my favorite kind of music. It's more because it's a reflection and a representation of the feeling that should be sat before you come to my channel. It's kind of a dun 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 dun. You know, it's like a heavy and hellish kind of music. Yeah, and it's good to me. I love it. No, I don't really. I'm not into heavy metal, but it does set the mood with the cabin of Dr. Caligari, freaking Island of Dr. Moreau kind of pictures going by there. Something to be said for the Britishers' editing style, whether you like it or not. He's actually pretty good at it. So, I'll tell you, boy, oh boy, oh boy, you must be shitting me. And here's the biggest problem with this idiot driving his car through some whoever they were, Antifa, white, whoever they were, don't really matter, does it? In the end, does it really matter to anybody that can hear me right now? Does it freaking matter? Somebody got in their vehicle, went to a very populated area that they knew people were going to be populating. And because of feelings, nothing more than feelings of love, because of their freaking feelings or their affiliations, their ideas, whatever, run their car to these people. And then what do I got to deal with now? Okay. I don't like Antifa. Not at all. The Britisher will vehemently disagree with me tomorrow. I think I'll have Matt Christensen on my side. When I say there was a time and place for Bass Stickman Kyle, the time is gone. The place no longer exists in my mind because it was shown very quickly, not just from Bass Stickman. He just sticks out. The guy that hit Moldy Locks too, and a few others that just stick out because they happen to catch them in the act of valor. But here's where people were coming together to see what would happen. Now we know what would happen. I am fully with the Britisher at this point, and I don't know how y'all feel. You'll tell me in the chat. When these things come about, there should be mounted police down there with them big old long billy clubs, just wha-bam, 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 wha-bam. One to the right, one to the alt-right, wha-bam, one to the alt-left. And here's one for you, Antifa. Bam. And here's one for you, Kyle Stick. Bam. Everybody should be getting their bloody heads busted in this. This has become, I can't even. And here's the big genesis of this, if you ask me. If you go around telling people, oh, this is a peaceful protest when they're burning Berkeley to the ground, smashing in windows. I shouldn't say burning Berkeley to the ground. That's a little exaggerating. but I'll do that. So just bear with me. Humor me. Burn Berkeley to the ground? Busting out store windows? Throwing fireworks meant to confuse, like basically a stun grenade, basically a flashbang. I mean, you let me throw a freaking a 4-inch mortar into your living room where you're sitting there right now, wherever you're at right now. And the last thing you know is boom, boom, and then bop. Man, you're disoriented. You don't know what the hell's going on. Lily's wondering why I'm being so ruckished up. Lily, eat a Antifa. Lily, dog. Lily. I gave her a lamb bone. Lily, dog. Would you eat an Antifa? Lily, dog. She don't even give a crap. I'd probably make her do something cool like growl or whatever later. But right now, she's got the rest of this lamb shank bone. And yes, I'm getting off because this stuff, listen, what does the world think about us? We must have some Britishers here. And the side, I see RPR. We must have some British folks here on the Britisher and the Ogre's channel. If we don't, I might as well freaking quit. How do we look to y'all? I mean, AlphaGo, how do you think this makes us look? Matt, how does this make us look? All over making excuses and saying this burning down Berkeley was peaceful riots. Oh man, I mean, I don't even want to condone any of it. Not this blood and soil people, or not the freaking BLMs, Black Lives Matter, not the Antifa. You know, not Richard Spencer, the alt-right. I've tried to listen to Richard Spencer. I don't get it. He's a moron. If this is the best, if this is their spokesman, and other alt-right have told the British and I on air, well, I'd like to be more eloquent, but if you just look at Richard Spencer and, oh, there's always this other one that they mention, neither one of them can even, they can't, I don't get it. You know, it's like they picked a class idiot to make their apologia. There's no way. You gotta pick somebody that's got half a brain. Well, I would say this. Making excuses for them people and then turning around saying, and look at these alt-right, neo-Nazi, Nazis, whatever, and calling them hate group and everything else right off the bat. Go watch the Blues Brothers. They made a lot of jokes in that movie, and they had one of the subplots of the Blues Brothers was the neo-Nazis were gonna get Elwood, you know, and Jake and Elwood. They were gonna get him. I'm trying to think right now what it was that they did. Oh, there was some kind of rally, and they just run their car up through him, I believe, and made him jump in the river. So and it was just part of the movie, but by the end, you had the Nazis, you know, you had the state police, you had the band that they screwed out of a gig, and the bar owner that they screwed out of a bunch of beer. And you had all these people chasing them. By the end, the whole state of Illinois was after him. Excusing the one and saying, oh, it's peaceful protest, while you denounce the other and say they're evil white supremacists. Why don't we just call it all what it is? Do we have the right to peacefully assemble? Absolutely. But the minute you show up with a black mask, a shield, a helmet, a stick, a BB gun, a lot of these people are carrying. Some of them carrying what look to be possibly real weapons, real firearms. I mean, holy crap, man. You know, you can't allow that in my mind. Right to peaceably assemble. That is drastically different than the right to mob up, to froth yourself up, to work yourselves up into a frenzy. I mean, everybody's heard it. What are they always screaming there? No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA. That I look around me where I live, it's just uptown today, and I try to, there's no fascism here, folks. I'll tell you all that right now. There is no fascism where I'm at right now. There's no bigotry. There's no racism. People that live around here are easygoing. Well, unless you try to rob them, if you're on their property late at night with thievery in mind, that's not the best place in the world to be, folks. There's not a lot of that tomfoolery goes on around here just because of the simple fact that oh, I can't remember the last statistics. Wherever I'm at, it's something to the effect of 98 or 99% of the houses have, you know, firearms within them in the domicile, and people in the domicile know how to use them. So that doesn't bode well for your night creeper, right? If you were doing that, it would be the old days. That's what happens here sometimes. Sometimes people just flat out break in, very rarely. But sometimes you still get what they call cat burglars. Remember that? Anybody that broke in the house used to be called a cat burglar because it was assumed that the people were in there, and if you woke them up, they'd probably kill you. That you had, I mean, they would kill you. Watch Far and Away. You know, look what happens to them when they're in somebody's house and trying to just get some grub because they're starving to death and freezing to death. Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, Far and Away. Y'all seen that movie? Good movie. Yeah, once again, I'm getting off topic. I sent the link to Zero Cool. This whole thing is predicated on the idea that Zero Cool was going to come in here and put the hammer down. But you never know with the farm boy. He could have, there's any number of things could be. He could be popping in right this second. He could be, who knows? He could not make it because there's just anything, number of things could happen. Well, let's see what we got here. Ian, how you doing, Ian? Brick Ridge, never even seen it before. The city cops showed up and declared an unlawful assembly, despite the fact that Unite the Right had won federal court case. Well, yeah, I'd say that they should have been able to assemble. There you are, Zero Cool. You're trying to make me sweat, man. You and the Britisher got some kind of gag going on with me or what?
Who?
You and the Brit. Y'all got a gag going that you just insist that you must be like 5 or 10 minutes late and make me sweat. Have me plan out like a 5-minute diatribe and then suddenly realize that the master of ceremonies isn't there and then I'm going to have to just keep talking.
No, you said it wouldn't be until about 1 o'clock my time, and it's only 12:11.
Oh. Yeah. No, it's totally my fault. Let me put my headphones on, bro.
Yeah, let me get mine on too. I'm watching a Razor Fist video about demonetization.
We might have to end up going up there. Oh, that horrible echo is from you not wearing headphones.
Yeah,
I don't really care. I might as well get used to it because it's about 3 or 4 times out of 10. I got to put the son bitch on anyway. And you'll figure it out. I'm going to look that video up from Razor. That's brand new. Because I just watched his latest Mad Max one.
Okay, hold on. I'll be right back.
All right, brother. Yeah, I guess it is my fault. I was looking through the thing too, folks. I swear I couldn't remember, to be honest. I swore I said 1 o'clock, but he's right. As soon as he said that, it's like rang a big bell. I was like, we'll do it 1 o'clock your time. And his time is an hour. He's in Rock Island, Moline, Davenport, you know, the Quad Cities. Which one am I missing out? It's Moline, Davenport, Rock Island, and oh, I can't believe it. I know it too. Anyway, there's 4 cities there. That's why they call it the Quad Cities. Oh, let's see. I see my name a couple times. Hi, Ogre and Chad. How you doing, Fogey? Good to have you here.
Yeah, so there's a yeah, I had to jump back in. I was watching a Razor Fist video where it's called "It's Not an Algorithm, It's a Blacklist," and Google literally has a fascist blacklist, and Razor Fist, and probably a lot of us are on it. I'm going to send you the link so you can share it with people, because this is fascism at its finest.
Oh, yeah, we're witnessing it. It's actually the people that are accusing. Well, you know that. I mean, it's the people accusing others of being fascists. They are the fascists, and that's the way it's always went. All you got to do is look at Mussolini, Benito, and the boys. They hung him upside down at a gas station by his feet, him and his family.
Well, it's you know what they say: those who don't study history are failed and doomed to repeat it.
Doomed to repeat it. That's why I
feel like fucking America's getting there again because they. It's been a little over 75 years since World War II, give or take, and it's like this current generation of people haven't learned a damn thing. So, you know, here's what I'm going to say. You little shitheads out there, you want your Civil War. You can have your Civil War because here's exactly what's going to happen. when you are fighting against your fellow citizens, there's going to be a lot of us that are standing on the side that are not going to help either one of you. We're going to come out ahead. And in the long run, we're going to have to defend ourselves. Sorry, we are going to have to defend ourselves from outside invading forces because of your dipshit, bullshit, idiotic behavior. So what happened in Charlottesville? Yeah, nice job, Antifa. Nice job, Black Lives Matters. You are the prime example of what fascism is in this country, and you proved it yesterday because you couldn't mind your own fucking business. End of rant.
That really wasn't their business either. They took it upon themselves to. Oh man!
They stuck their nose where it wasn't wanted. And you know what? Thank Christ in heaven, my governor, the state of Iowa, kept her nose out of it. The state of Iowa did not. Our governor did not get on Twitter, did not get on YouTube, did not get on Facebook and say a damn thing. Do you know why? Because while we feel bad about this whole thing that happened, the fuck were we going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. And I saw all these other governors, all these other mayors, all these other leftist political dipshits chime their 2 cents in. And I send out 350 tweets, all of which Twitter removed, by the way, sandblasting everybody with logic. And honestly, I don't give a shit that Twitter removed all my posts except for 2. So what? I can live without it. It's not something that I need to have in my life. It just goes to show we're headed down that road where everybody talks about, oh, it's 1984. No, motherfuckers. Right now it's Brave New World. You're making it 1984 because you do not respect your fellow citizens and let them have their time to have their free speech and their expression. And here's exactly what would have happened. That whole thing down at Charlottesville was a joke from the first time, in the first place. You should have just let them be morons. But no, you stuck your fucking nose in it. And then as a result, chaos bred more chaos, which bred more anger and fear and hatred. And the guy ran, and that dipshit 20-year-old ran into people with this fucking Dodge Challenger. Nice job, idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, when they're pushing it, I'm going to play a little clip here. Who remembers Yvette Fararka? Anybody remember him? I'm sure you do. Zero, the lady, by any means necessary. She was like... she attacked this guy, punched him up in the ribs and stuff. And I'm just going to play this little piece. It'll speak for itself pretty well. But this is what happens. Once they've done their dirty deeds, they say that they're in the right. Therefore, they shouldn't be prosecuted anyway. Check this out.
Berkeley teacher says assault charges against her should be dropped. She was in court today for her role in a riot that broke out at the state capitol. Yvette Fararka was caught on video punching a narrator, but she says standing up to fascism should not be a crime. KPIX5's Da Lin was in the Sacramento courtroom where that teacher faced a judge. Da?
That's right. She made a brief appearance inside the courtroom here. Outside, she and her supporters are calling this case a witch hunt. They want the prosecutors to drop the charges.
Protesting fascism is not a crime.
A small local crowd rallies in support of the Berkeley school teacher.
Drop the charges! Now!
The charges stemmed from this June 2016 fight at the state capitol. Yvette Fararka's group, By Any Means Necessary, was protesting against a white nationalist group. A video shows Fararka repeatedly punching a man. The man had both hands up, walking to a line of police officers for help. Fararka and others dragged the man down and kicked him. Prosecutors charged Fararka with 1 count of felony assault and 2 misdemeanor counts of inciting and participating in a riot. Fararka did not enter a plea today. Her lawyers are still waiting for all the documents on the case.
These charges are false against me. They should be dropped.
She gave a short statement but did not answer any questions.
Yeah, false.
Against fascism and the rise of Nazism and fascism in this country is not a crime. We have a right to defend ourselves.
Her attorney blames police officers for not stepping in earlier to keep the peace.
I think anyone has the right to self-defense. And I think what's shown on that video is partial and incomplete.
But some people who have seen the video say that's not.
Okay, this is complete, utter bullshit. The reason she is being charged with a felony assault and 2 misdemeanors of whatever is because she hit a person. It doesn't matter who it was. It is on video, which is by law empirical evidence. And there is no uncensored or censored footage. What is being shown is the whole thing. She incited a riot. She committed assault and battery, and then 3 other people jumped the guy and curb stomped him.
Kicked him. Yeah,
she is going to jail, and if she doesn't go to jail, it will only be because of the state she lives in and the geopolitical pressure that the judge is probably going to kowtow down to, if that.
Well, she should get a felony out of this deal.
Fucked.
Oh, fuck. In Michigan, I don't care who you were, unless you like senator's son, daughter. Maybe not even, probably not even then. I mean, governor's kid. You can't go up in broad daylight and go bam, 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 and then get a group, like you said, because that's bad enough. That's aggravated battery, assault and battery, however you want to look at it, but it's aggravated battery. And then everybody jumping on him. She was the genesis of that. So she's looking at something serious there too. I mean, she should go to jail for 90 days at the very least, if it's her first offense, and she should get a felony out of this deal.
Well, honestly,
I would.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Ogre. I don't think she's going to get anything because I think that the fat cow that's her lawyer, amongst other people, are going to bitch and moan and whine and drive the judge into a frenzy, and the judge will basically say, I can't handle this shit. Yvette Falarka, if you ever hear this, come to Iowa and start that shit. We've got vast cornfields. We don't have a problem sticking you up to your neck in. We don't tolerate that shit. In fact, if you ever were to come fucking punch me, I'd knock your fucking 5'3" ass out and put you into the dirt. I've got a kid that's your exact same height who's militarily trained now, being 2 weeks in. She'd put you into the fucking curb without a blink of an eye, because you know why? She knows that the second you lay a hand on a person, that person can act in self-defense. They can either choose to put their hands up or they can choose to punch you square in the jaw, and they'll get away with it. Bitch, you want to talk about fascism? You are the embodiment of fascism, you fucking racist little bitch. And I call you those names simply because that's the only language that you understand. That's the only language your kind understands. You think everything is nice and green and roses and all that shit in the fucking fields? Well, then you behave like an animal, we treat you like an animal, and then you cry like a little bitch. That's all you know. That's all you know is deceit, deception, and when you get called out for it, you whine. And it's beyond the point right now, in this country at least, and thank Christ for goddamn Donald J. Trump being in the White House saying we all need to act like adults and come together and knock this off instead of putting one side in the other. That's a real president, by the way. Barack Obama, bite me, you butthole stinking biker bear. Yesterday, and Yvette Falarka, all you people, you're proving that you're fascist. And fuck you, Google, and fuck you, YouTube. You can't do shit to me, and you damn well know it.
Yeah, I mean, and Zero's views may not reflect the views of police state and or church as a whole, but I don't.
They don't.
I don't necessarily disagree with them. I mean,
my opinions are mine and my own, and they do not reflect anybody. And that's not for a legal cause. It's because that's the truth, and the truth seems to hurt a lot of people recently. Yvette Falarka, you're a troublemaker. Your entire breed is a troublemaker.
It was simply a joke because if it happened on this channel, it wouldn't matter anyway. I mean, somebody could do something off the cuff that was illegal, and I could lose my ability to stream on this channel. Yeah, it's totally up to Google.
Yeah,
just the way it is.
Well, that's one of the good things about live streams is we don't actually have to have them uploaded. They can be done, and then we take them down. That's all there is to it. That's the point of a live stream. It's a limited momentary time of people doing what they do, and it doesn't have to be on anything. It's like, it's here, it's gone, that's just the way it goes.
Oh, I use it to provide content for my channel also. I let them load up most of the time, but I have been known to pull a boner on shows and not put it up, like rewatch some parts and be like, I won't leave this up.
You know, that's actually one of the things that is good about editing. You could actually, if you wanted to, and I personally wouldn't find this offensive, because I'm not going to tell you how to run your show. I actually would get a kick out of if you put up a black bar with a long beeping sound when I went on my tirade.
Oh, no. Well,
because that's strict comedic. You know, that's straight out, warning, this, blah, 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 and then beep. That would just, that can just be done for fun. And a lot of people seem to not have a sense of humor about that shit these days.
Now, well, for myself, I used to take the videos and download them and then chop them up. I had the best ofs. I mean, you look back in my old library, I have the best of Pizzy. I have a lot of best ofs, Cabbage Patch, and I do. But man, for myself, especially in the summertime, wintertime, there may be more of that, some, kind of I take the live stream down and chop it up and, make it funner. But until I have the extra time, there's no way I can do it. I'm done I take one day off a week, and on that day, I ain't sitting around editing a video.
Yeah.
Some people get a kick out of it, don't get me wrong, but I'm more along the lines of the Britisher, man. I don't get a kick out of editing a video. The only reason I would do it was because it's a means to an end. I need to get it done. That's the only reason I do it.
Here's something else that I would suggest people do. I would suggest they find a video downloader, and I'm not going to say names, because the second I say names, and Ogre, don't say a name either, because the second we say names, the YouTube program, YouTube itself and Google will find a way to start blocking the codecs, and we can't use them anymore. And start downloading your favorite videos from YouTube, because it's getting to a point where they're going to start purging stuff left and right. I'm starting to download all of Razor Fist stuff, all of James Rolfe's stuff, all of Pat, the NES Punks, anybody that I watch, and put it on an external hard drive so I can watch it for myself. And I'm not even going to be uploading stuff onto YouTube anymore. I'm going to VidMe and other places. I'm actually following Styx Hexenhammer in that regard.
That's smart. That's smart.
Saying fuck you, YouTube. I'll come and pull stuff down if I want, but you guys don't know how to run business. You're a corporation. You don't know how to run your business.
No, I agree.
The reason Walmart, for a reason Walmart gets as much shit as it does is because they're actually greedy bastards. But unlike YouTube, they know business.
Yeah.
They know and there have been times when Walmart has butterfingered something so bad, they've come out and said, you know what, we're wrong. We apologize. It shouldn't have happened. Let's remedy the situation. I mean, it was still said and done, but they still manned up and said, hey, we need to apologize and fix this. YouTube and Google, because you're an online item only, you're not an actual physical byproduct of anything, you think you can be the keyboard cowboys and do whatever you want. I got a little news for you bitches. Read your history and how the West was lost.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll see. I've got foolishly all my eggs in one basket on this topic here. I've only got stuff on YouTube. I have a Minds, but I think I've lost the password or forgotten it or something.
I would definitely say talk with Styx or follow what Styx is doing and post the VidMe and whatnot. And I personally, I've actually started using Proton Mail and Pale Moon, and I've transferred everything over to a new browser. I've ditched Firefox because they're going the same way of Google. I don't even use my Microsoft Edge. And these are the stuff that Styx has recommended. I've tried out. You could actually, I think there's something called WaterFox, but he said he didn't like it. I'll check into it myself. But people start finding other routes and ways of doing stuff, because YouTube is trying to dictate and Google's trying to dictate everything to where they can basically say, you know what, we know what your email is, we can shut you off there, and then, that is gone by the wayside.
Well,
now, with my rant being done about the left, let's go right into something that is a very serious matter, because what happened with the whole debacle of Charlottesville yesterday did result in a loss of life, which is never funny and never a good thing. Not even in times of war. It's still a loss of life. It's still a loss of life. Roll it.
Oh, I can play it. I'll play the clip if you want. I was basically showing this. Yeah, I'll play it. I don't know. I don't think I can get in any trouble for showing this kind of stuff, Zero. And I guess if I do, I do. They usually give me a warning.
You do, but it's also one of the things that, this is information that's coming out that's confirmed, and whether you like Fox News or not is irrelevant. The person who drove their Dodge Challenger and hit somebody. They willingly made the choice to engage in a criminal act, and they're going to get in trouble for it, rightfully so. And this does need to be followed up.
Captured on video that we've all seen. The car plowing into the counter-protesters at the high rate of speed, knocking down the victims in its path. before it suddenly backed up down the street. And police are saying, of course, it was no accident. This is the woman who was so tragically killed. She was 32 years old, Heather Heyer. She was walking across the street at the intersection, said police, when that car slammed into her. 19 other people were injured, 5 critically, and remain in the hospital at this hour. Police have arrested this man, the suspected driver, identified as 20-year-old James Alex Fields. He comes from Ohio, and he is now charged with second-degree murder, and the Justice Department has opened a civil rights probe into this incident. Also under federal investigation, the nearby crash of that state police chopper that tragically killed 2 state Virginia police.
So this idiot, and James, you're a moron. Okay, people, in case you don't know the laws of physics out here, I'm going to recite 2 things. Basically, Matt, a certain amount of matter cannot occupy the same space as another amount of matter, no matter what. That's why air is air, water is liquid and goes around us, and we technically go through it, and we cannot occupy the same space of the similar object at the same time. That being said, the average car, and I will basically say, because I looked up my model of car, my Ford Taurus 2011, is roughly a 2.5 short ton vehicle that, going roughly 60 miles an hour, will kill a person. That is the laws of physics number 2. And that Dodge Challenger falls within the same specs of X amount of weight versus X amount of speed versus X amount of the impact. Political shit aside, this guy, he broke the law. He willingly chose to break the law. I condemn his actions, and as a conservative and as a nationalist, a person who believes America for Americans regardless of your skin tone and your political beliefs and your specific religious beliefs to an extent, this is wrong. This is an act of cruelty. He is going to go to jail. He's probably going to serve life. Because let's face it, he killed a 32-year-old woman, whether she was with the anti-protesters or not, is irrelevant. This guy broke the law. He's going to jail. He deserves to go to jail. And on top, and now I don't have the full picture about the chopper crashing. I don't know anything about that. We'll have to get to that next if it's related or not. I pretty much shut my brain off after a certain amount of time of hearing all this footage, because I had this, I have to save my own mental state. I can't have this much, my brain can't process this much stupid in one day. In fact, that's actually a thing I'm probably going to start doing when I learn how to do videos, is my brain can, I've actually copyrighted that too. It was difficult. My brain can only process so much stupid. But regardless, this idiot broke the law. He broke the law of physics. He broke the laws of man. He broke the laws of God. He broke the law of thou shalt not kill. He intentionally drove his vehicle like that, and it killed a person. He broke the laws of man to not drive recklessly, to not abuse his privilege. He broke the laws of physics, of which I stated earlier. X amount of weight versus X amount of speed equals X amount of impact. James, you are an idiot, and you dishonor us Americans, just like every other person in this country who has taken a life. You dishonor your fellow Americans. Prayers and thoughts go out to the family of the 32-year-old woman who was killed.
Man, killed that. I know it, man. She was pretty too. And I think it wouldn't matter if she was a land whale and ugly as hell. It
doesn't matter. A loss of life is a loss of life. This person took it upon himself to behave a certain way, and he robbed this woman's family of knowing who she is and who she was going to continue to be into old age. If she had children or she had nephews, nieces, grandnieces, grandnephews. He willingly broke the law of man and God and physics to deprive people who love this person. It's unacceptable. James, you deserve to go to jail. And in regards to afterlife, that's between you and God, dude, but you're in trouble for a lot of shit, pal. Now, as for the civil and federal investigation, good.
Well, if they go federal, though, Zero, and call it a hate crime, you get the death penalty.
Well, you know what? I guess he should.
But hear me out now on this, and I do got to play devil's advocate. This is the way I feel about this, man. Antifa caused this.
Yes, they did.
The idea of the mainstream media always saying that the Ohio University of Ohio, where the guy ran a car, got out, stabbed people. London Bridge. I mean, it goes on and on and on, where they're driving into people and stabbing them, and they excuse. Now, don't get me wrong; these Muslims are going to jail, but when are they ever prosecuted under any hate crime or terrorism?
Exactly.
And then this person is going to be. No, I think it should be. Look, if you get in your car, and this is hard for me to say, but there was a time in this country where we hung people for stealing a horse. If you get in your car and you drive it into a crowd of people, you don't get housed and fed for the rest of your life. You get if you're convicted, you get took out of the jail. When your scaffold is built, you go there and you hang. This person should be hung. I mean, that's a good way to execute too, because if there is a deterrent, the public hanging is one of them. And anyway, so
Ogre, there's always a deterrent, but that never stops people from acting like morons.
Oh no! Well, in England, 300 years ago, they'd hung people in Piccadilly Square for pickpocketing, and there were pickpockets working the crowds. So yeah, I understand that. But so let's just forget about deterrent then. Justice. This young lady is dead. There were people flung around by the impact of that, because he violated the laws of physics there. Because of that violation, and the others you spoke of, but especially that one, I've seen some people get just flung like rag dolls, man, just thrown all around. I'm pretty sure I've seen this girl. She's on the hooded card and got off when we backed up. But there's going to be some people that are hurt to the point where they're not going to be right. Zero. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's not a video game. It's not a video game. You can't enter cheat codes. This isn't. Name a video game where you drive a car and you bounce and you hit people because it's funny or because you get some kind of amusement out of it, knowing that, okay, I've relieved my stress, now I can go out into the real world and I'm not going to do this. It's not a goddamn video game. It's real life. And here's the hypocrisy of the liberal left. They want this teacher who basically, she couldn't fucking punch her way out of a paper bag with both ends open.
Yeah, dude, man had his arms right up in the air while she was heavy bagging him, and he didn't even grunt.
He couldn't.
But she was still hitting him.
The point is, she hits him, she assaults him, and then these other three fucking gorillas, which they're the ones they should be going after as well, end up trying to basically curb stomp him. And they're saying, free her now, free her now. What do you want? You liberal leftists, you're a bunch of hypocrites. You know, I believe Styx, Hex, and Hammer said it best when 20, 30 years ago, you guys were basically what we are now. That you claim are on the so-called right. Hell, my uncles and my aunts that were hippies, they're looking, and they're in their late 50s, early 60s. They're looking at you, thinking, "What did we do wrong?" And I said, "Well, you guys kind of started this, but that's another subject." They're looking at and people like actors and actresses that are speaking out that this is okay. You guys really don't know who your core audience is either. I don't even go to movies anymore. In fact, after I've heard a lot of celebrities mouthing off about our president, I basically said, you know, it's a good thing I know how to pirate stuff because you guys aren't getting my money. And I'm sorry.
It's hard, isn't it? Once you hear the Johnny Depp, who I got to say, I've seen a lot of his movies, but Secret Window, Secret Garden, Secret Window, Secret Garden. It's a short
I think it's the
story.
Secret Garden.
Well, but that's the story by Stephen King was Secret Window, Secret Garden. I'm gonna tell you, man, the portrayal and to work by John Turturro, who is so underrated in my mind. He's got to be one of the top 3 actors in my lifetime. But then I hear him say some, oh my gracious, man.
And that's what it comes down to.
Did you hear the Rosie O'Donnell thing where she was like,
you know what? These celebrities don't realize that the more you separate by class and size, make the rich, the poor, that they're going to lose out money and they join the ranks of the poor because they're not as big and powerful as they think they are. This is kind of what I try to tell people. So ultimately what I'm getting to is all these people saying, yeah, let this tiny little 5'3", 5'4" bullshit professor out because she hit somebody and he's like, yeah, I stand up to fascism. No, you were basically engaging in an act of domestic terrorism by inciting a riot, by the way, and then then solely condemning this idiot for hitting a person and taking a life, injuring 19 others, 5 critical. There's no difference. Violence is violence. Crime is crime. The professor and this idiot driver, James, broke the laws of God, man, and physics, and they both need to be punished accordingly because that's how you mete out true justice in an American society. And all you idiots out there that think that you're fighting for equal rights and other things, this ain't the 1960s. This ain't the 1970s. By the 1980s, mid-1985, things were going pretty much damn well great. Your generation comes along, Generation X dipshits that are not myself, that I am embarrassed to be part of, and the remainder of the baby boomers who need to fucking die off because your time is up and you've destroyed this planet more than you care to admit, you're all fucking things up that your forefathers and forebears, men and women, regardless of skin tone, have worked so hard to achieve. You insult our government, you insult our people, you insult our military leaders, past and present, you insult the great people like Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, all the people that fought to help people escape from Nazi Germany, all the people that helped and fought bravely to escape from in the Underground Railroad in regards to the first American Civil War, Martin Luther King, and I'm not lionizing him because he done some stupid shit too. My point is, all these things that these people worked for, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all these dudes, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, all these people that you appreciate, you're undoing everything these people have done for over near 250 years in the matter of 5 years or less. Nice job, assholes. Nice job. You deserve a fucking medal.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
And then they want to go out and blame white people. Yeah, okay, good. You know what? We've seen if I really want to get crucial about it, if I really want to get mean and critical, you take away white people from this country, you can see what's going to happen. You take what's been happening in the last 5 years, multiply that by 1 billion. That's how fast this country will be destroyed and taken over by another country. You know, there are days I wish I could wake up and say, oh, by the way, China owns America now. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll learn Chinese because I'm not trying to be mean, but there are a lot of people that won't willingly change. They're the ones that'll go away, and you can bet it will not be a large portion of white people. Now, will it? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He's a bit of a goer, right? Yeah, thought so. Next time, left, check your fucking fire, bitch, because you ain't got nothing. Your ammo's empty, and you ain't got no reloads. End of fucking rant.
That's good too, Zero. And for everybody listening, of course, no one's going to agree with anybody all the time. Everybody, here's Zero, what I think you're already used to. You've been doing this for a little while now. What I'm definitely used to is I was told by a preacher when I took my first ministerial position back when I did that kind of thing. Very wise preacher. I still call him Rabbi. His last name is Wise, too, to beat all hell. And he sat me down and he said, you know what, Ogre? You're going to please everybody in this church. And I was stunned because he was usually very realistic, and that seemed really flowery for him. And I was like, what do you mean, Rabbi? He says, you're going to please everybody here. 1/3 of them are going to be happy today that you take over. 1/3 of them are going to be happy while you're here, and 1/3 of them are going to be happy when you get the hell out. And so I found out.
Oh, that's harsh, dude. Well, I mean, that's good,
true.
But it's harsh. I mean,
true.
you know, it's funny harsh.
It's very true. I laughed when he said it, for sure.
But you're making a very valid point. You know, the days that I can, you know, to avoid an echo chamber in both life, in real life and online, is to be challenged, is to occasionally get cussed out, is to occasionally have somebody who holds the exact opposite viewpoint in you throw something so hard and fast in your face, you have no choice but to say, you know, maybe they got something there. Now, that doesn't mean they're 100% right, but it doesn't mean you're 100% right either. I was having a very belated birthday lunch with my friend yesterday. And before the whole thing with James being a complete jackhat, we were actually talking about the Charlottesville march on both sides. She is my friend, and she's been my friend for a good 15 years. We've always been on political opposite spectrums. And I guess in today's society, outside of us, people would say, well, how can you two eat lunch together? He's a conservative, you're a liberal. And she will just turn around and says, well, he's probably the most realistic conservative I've ever met because he actually gives a shit enough to listen to other people's opinions other than his own, and he appreciates them. And I say the same thing about her. Now, we don't always agree on everything. But the truth of the matter is we bounce off each other so well because we need to. It helps both of us avoid an echo chamber. And we basically walked away from that Chinese dinner, and we talked about Charlottesville prior to the car incident and the unnecessary taking an injury of life there. And we both came to the conclusion that all sides are wrong and that all sides are also going to play the victim. And you got to remember, people, this is coming from my friend who voted for Hillary, who is a leftist, but she is more a classic liberal, pre-1960s and 70s. She's actually a second-wave feminist, and she hates third-wave feminists, as opposed to a strict conservative like myself. So
most second wavers don't appreciate third wave feminists. They're
and they're right. And she's seen some third wave feminists, and she's actually gone and jack slapped them. And when they cried about it, I said, "Oh, why are you crying? I thought you were all about equality and all this shit. So when a woman who's old enough to be your mom backhands you because you're being a disrespectful little, fill in the blank, you're going to go play the victim. That's not the way it works. If you want to act like you wear the pants in the family, you take the punches." And they're like, "Well, you don't know anything, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "You know what? Bite me, kid. I'm not going to lose any sleep over this." Regardless, we both walked away from that Chinese dinner, and we said, this is going to be a fucking mess. And she called me this morning. She said, "Did you hear about the guy driving the car?" And I said, "Yeah, I told you it was going to be a fucking mess." She goes, "Yep, and now both sides are going to start playing the victim."
Yeah.
And
well, the only victim is us, society, regular society.
Well,
the normal
people. And the woman who lost her life
unnecessarily.
unnecessarily.
Well, of course, the people that got hit. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, outside of the circle of that town and who got directly affected, those who were injured, that lady that died, her family, all the people that had witnessed it and now probably suffered a little PTSD from that horrific incident. Besides that, the people that mainly suffer, it seems like it is intentional. This is George Soros money, buying what it wants at its finest. It's us. It's the common citizen. Hi, Conscious Caracal. I'm glad you could make it by. This is kind of a heavy day here in the States.
Caracal, because I was running this all by myself into the ground. I need your help to not do that.
I don't. I great. But I did eat like a big old. I did some made some lamb shanks, and I'm a little full. Feels good. What's up, brother?
I'm lamb shanks on my weakness. Fuck. In South Africa, we eat a lot of lamb, especially in the Karoo region, which is like this desert region in the middle of South Africa where they mostly just farm with sheep. And the sheep the lamb chops from there, it's absolutely incredible, the best in the world. You can taste like the field plants and shit and all the little leaves you can taste in that meat.
I get mine from New Zealand.
Some of the best meat out there.
So lamb shanks and Napoleon ice cream, because that's what I just finished up.
You had lamb shanks also?
No, I had Napoleon ice cream.
Oh, okay. No, okay.
Neapolitan ice cream.
Let's get back on. We'll talk about what we ate after. I'm glad. And Zero, you weren't running anything into the ground. It came to my realization, and I'll take a minute to say this and then kick it to CC. But it came to my realization a while ago. What is the sense in gathering together some pretty fine intellects on this channel if I don't let them talk? If I look back at the thing and it's like, holy shit, Ogre, you were speaking 4 out of 5 minutes. It just doesn't make much sense. If I want to do that, I could just come on and not have anybody on and yak. So I try to let people have a hand.
I actually had a pretty nice dinner. I've tweeted about it. I made some toast, had some fresh South African avos, put some salt and pepper on there, and then the piece de resistance was the chili powder I bought from like a witch doctor next to the road. Absolutely incredible.
You shouldn't. You bought chili powder from a witch doctor?
Yeah, I posted it on Twitter. I'll put a link now in the chat so people can see.
I'm looking for it right now.
And then you ran across idiots deciding to run into other idiots.
It was yesterday. I'll get a link now. Here it is. There you go.
So basically what it breaks down to is people of the current generation, they're engaging in the acts that in 1960 were justified and morally proper, thinking that they're so underdeprived and suffering from all these other things, which they were basically born into not knowing. Now don't get me wrong, racial discrimination does exist. And though I can argue racism itself, which I'm waiting for, I would love to have Conscious Caracal and Logical Lion with me on this, because we've been trying. Logical Lion and I have been trying to get together on this, but that's a topic that I would love to have you on, CC, because it's very now, Ogre. I wouldn't mind you jumping in, but you love to just diatribe, and we love you for it. But I'm very harsh when it comes to actually what I believe is racism, what isn't racism. And Logical Lion brought this up to me anyway.
Explain yourself, sir. What do you mean? But look at this. This is what I had for lunch. They're conscious caracal. 2 lamb shanks.
Oh, is that little? Is that like rosemary leaves?
Oh, that's rosemary. I grew everything on my plate. I grew except for the lamb.
That looks amazing. Oh, God, I wish you could like
and the oven. He didn't grow the Samsung.
No, I didn't. Everything on the plate I grew except for the pepper, the salt, and the lamb. But everything else.
Oh, okay. I wish you could mail that to me.
It might be stale by then. But I don't know. I mean, I diatribe sometimes, but yeah, continue without putting me down too much. I kick you the fuck out, Zero. You smart ass. Go ahead.
I would probably have it coming too, but that's fine. So basically, what I'm getting to is, being born in the mid to late 70s, my generation has, the Generation X, we really have nothing to complain about. In the sense of in inequality and racial injustice. Now that shit does happen whether we like it or not, because the adage of it's not what you know, it's who you know has always heavily been in play, and people just lie about it otherwise. So these millennials, they're basically the first generation of people that basically have it. If this were the height of, if this is the height of American civilization and it's falling, we're fucked. But regardless,
I can positively say.
Don't let me finish, CC. These millennials, they have everything at their foot. They have the capability of going out and working a hard job if they want. They have the opportunities to go out and work a white, blue collar, or whatever type of job they want, as to where Generation X, baby boomers, and the people before them didn't, because technology makes certain things possible. And things do change, and that's just the way it is. But Generation X was the first generation that I can recall that basically had that capability of having true racial equality, because we had certain things that were allotted to us that were not technologically available, thankfully, where everybody was sticking everybody's nose in everybody's business. But we were basically raised as in, it doesn't matter if this person's skin tone is this. They're your fellow American. They're your fellow human being. People are not always going to get along. You just, you just roll with it. And that's what a lot of us were taught. And yeah, sure, as we grow up, we're going to run across people that are complete assholes and buttheads and whatever you want to call them. But it's ultimately, we were given the choice of either to ignore or to engage. And a lot of us chose to ignore because we realized there's too much fun stuff out there. We had the advent of video games. We had movies being made. We have all these things to keep us entertained. And we realized we like these things, and that everybody's making something that everybody else can like. And yes, we were slightly political in the 1990s, to be sure, but we weren't even remotely as big as jackhats as these people are today. And that definitely comes from the advent of people knowing everybody's business.
Yeah, no, I'm completely on the same page. But I think something that you're not emphasizing enough is that the millennials are basically the daycare generation. And I think that plays a much larger role than people would like to admit. The fact that these people were put in daycares where they had to compete with for the attention of one overworked adult figure, and the parents. It's the first generation where parents actually had to go work again, where the one parental unit couldn't bring in all the income. Where, for example, both your parents were working, and the child would spend the entire day at the daycare with a lot of other neglected children, and they'd basically grow up fucked up. It would change them. I can imagine it would be pretty traumatizing for a small child that doesn't understand that his parents will come back at the end of the day. That idea of it feels like your parents are abandoning you for the day, and it's according to a child's logic, if you understand.
Conscious, I think that you're right, but there's another aspect that I think that you're not hitting. All right, I'm sorry, but I don't give the excuse, all right, to a lot of these people, because many of these two-parent families, all right, don't have to work. two parents. They do that because they like their lifestyle, and their lifestyle is more important to them than their child is.
I never said it as an excuse. I never said that.
No. I understand it. I'm just, but when people say it's because of the two parent or the two income household, all right, and yes, there are parents that are that both of them are working everything they can just to put bread on the table.
Okay,
right? I'm not denying that doesn't take place, but that's not the majority of that's not the majority. The majority of the two income households are people that could live with less, but are refusing to do that, and they're sacrificing their child's upbringing and well-being.
Yes.
To maintain the lifestyle that they have.
To be fair, guys, that could be said since the days of the baby boomers, because baby boomers were the first generation to identify as having an ego over their id and everything, and the generation of self. And they were the rise of the teenagers, by the way.
What I think a lot of people are
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no. What I wanted to say is, maybe I should rephrase myself. I didn't mean to come across as saying that these people were forced into both parental units working. It was a time in human history where people wanted more money. Everyone wanted a job. Everyone wanted to work when they were 30, 40 years old. Nobody wanted to be a stay-at-home dad or mother. It was kind of a societal thing. It was a phase that we went through. It was a societal, cultural phase where that was the norm. That was what you should strive towards, that both parents are hardworking, brings in money. You have a shit ton of... So you're neglecting your child in one aspect, but then the rationale is you use that extra income to kind of spoil them in another facet of life, which is flawed.
Buy them a car and a motorcycle, but
that's why these millennials are so spoiled. That's why these millennials are so spoiled, because these parents feel guilty that they were doing. And when they got older, they realized, shit, we kind of fucked up of our child's life, or like psychologically, our child is pretty messed up. Let's try and overcompensate. Let's buy them a car. Let's give them too much freedom. Let's just let them do whatever. Because we didn't grant them that when they were little. So for me, I think people over romanticize it.
I agree with you. All right, but I also think that it's all part of a wider scheme, because it was during this same time frame that they came up with the ridiculousness of saying you don't want to teach your little boy, you shouldn't be telling him big boys don't cry. That's not how you should be raising your child. At the same time, all that was going on, where they're trying to change the norms of society. All right, in a large extent, all of this came down, and in a way, it looks like a perfect storm. Right, you've got people right now in this country that we never had before, where they are more interested in themselves than they are in the people around them, specifically the family.
Be careful that you don't confine this only to the US. I think it's a global phenomenon. Mostly in the West, in industrialized countries. Because I can talk from experience, this happened in South Africa as well, beat for beat.
Well, then that just basically goes back to something I was saying earlier about people, millennials being the basically entitled shitheads that they are, is because it ultimately, one generation was raised this way, one generation was raised that way, and then this generation, which ultimately became the daycare generation, or whatever you want to call it. Because, guys, let's be honest, I'm a Gen Xer, and it's not that I'm cynical or I don't give a shit. When I was raised, and it also has to do with how you are raised, guys. Let's admit to this. It's how your parents treated you. My father worked a full-time job. Now, when my sister and I were both children, we didn't go to daycare. We stayed at home with mom until we were 3 or 4, and then we went off to preschool, and then we went off to kindergarten. And this exact moment that happened, my mom went back to work because she has always worked part-time. Now, most people don't. I'm not speaking for most people. I can't say most people. Let me be fair. Hold on a second. I had to belch. Now, that's a foreign concept to a lot of people in America, which is sad, because I can safely say that in a lot of Asian countries, while you can either argue for or against the man works and the woman stays at home, I've done the research, and there are the numbers that prove this out there, that the men still work in the family, and the mom at least holds down a part-time job after a child is a certain age and is off to school. And their family structures work better. And then the children while they do allow their children to, of course, become their own people and have their own identities and do their own things as teenagers, because that's the way it rolls, they still have more respect for their elders, for their parents, for their grandparents, and their aunts and their uncles and their cousins, nieces, nephews, and so on and so forth, as opposed to Americans. And that is only, I can only say that as an American. I can't say that about anything else because I've not witnessed it. But I've only seen numbers saying this is how Japan works, this is how China works, this is how England works, this is how America works. And it is the decline and fall of Western civilization is a moral decay issue. And it's not a religious issue, it's a moral decay issue.
I think what perfectly, well, maybe not. Well, this is how I understand your point. It relates to one of my favorite quotes that goes, bad times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create bad times.
Didn't you say that last time?
I always say it because it's so true.
Well, it's a very true thing. Now,
You become complacent.
Right. And that's the thing, we've become complacent, which complacency has led to stupidity, ignorance, and anger, which culminated yet again.
Stifles progress.
Oh yeah, very much stifles appropriate progress, but it culminates in the stupidity that happened yesterday. And by the way, people, before anybody, and I'm not saying our audience would think this, but anybody who sees this after my rambling earlier, let me just remind you of something. It's been 3 years since the Ferguson riots, and guess what? We barely ever talk about it anymore. And look what happened to those people down there. They said there was racial injustice after it was already proven that Mike Brown broke the law, tried to kill a cop, and the cop basically was doing his job, defending himself, and had the right to shoot him. And look what you did. You destroyed your own town. Now, here in Iowa, we're glad you destroyed your own town because you weren't messing with us. We don't want you here. If that's the mentality that you have, stay the fuck away from us. And that's the same with anything else in this country. If you're going to behave bad over here, stay away from us. If you're going to, if you're going to be 5 states over and you want to do that, good, stay away from us. Yeah. We don't want that.
That's all well and good, all right? But I think there's one thing that hasn't been identified yet. I think a lot of people are looking at this thing that happened in Charlottesville. All right, you have people on Twitter right now that are saying, "Well, this is the end of the right. This puts an end to the alt-right. They're through right now."
Not even close.
No, the both ends of the extremes got what they wanted. Yep. Both end of these extremes not only got what they wanted, they're going to increase in numbers.
Yep.
And anybody who thinks that what happened here, I mean, first of all, you have the governor of Virginia. What did he do? Did he only condemn the alt-right? Did he condemn Antifa coming into his state and causing this? No, he did not. And this is where a lot of the problem begins. It goes back to when you have governors and you've got state or state politicians and local politicians who are hardcore leftists. All right, they will never condemn the violence created by leftist groups.
Now, let's be fair. It works both ways. It really does.
Really? Tell me when you've seen a situation where the left was blamed, all right, but the right wasn't by a Republican official.
The University of Iowa had Antifa members try to rise and riot on the Iowa Hawkeye campus. Then Governor Branstad, and it didn't make the news because why would it? Iowa City is filled with liberal newspapers. Governor Branstad said basically, hey, this is the University of Iowa. It's a business, not your goddamn house. You behave accordingly or you will be forced out. And nobody took him seriously. And guess what? 40 people lost their scholarships because they engaged in basic acts of terrorism and tried to destroy Iowa University property. And these fuckers did it by the McKinnick Stadium, which was right next to the goddamn hospital.
But that's not the right causing a clash like this. This is what I'm talking about. In this kind of a clash right now, but what happened in Charlottesville. Okay. You had Trump came out, he condemned both sides, and rightly so.
As he should.
All right. And everyone should be condemning both sides for this. However, the governor, who's the one who had to call out the National Guard, he basically gave carte blanche to the leftists because all he condemned was the neo-Nazis on the right.
I didn't okay, first I want to make clear, I didn't specify that it was this type of situation. I simply said this kind of behavior is engaged on both sides, and you said, give you an example, and I did.
No. I agree with it.
I just want to make sure that's clear.
My
yes,
point
I do agree with you on what you're saying as well.
My problem is the condemnation is only one way. And if it continues...
It's always only one way. That's the problem.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's always one way. That's the problem.
Yes.
And this is the thing, and you've got to remember, I know I am a little hyper, but I'm not upset. Because some people say, oh, I sound like I'm upset. I'm hyper. They heard me upset earlier. The thing is, this is now going to piss off the left even more, because President Trump said, you're both acting like idiots. He punished both children. That's still going to piss the left off, which is still going to irritate the right. And again, lead back to why you said, oh, everybody thinks the right is going down in flames. No, it's going to rise. This is basically going to be, and I hate to use this analogy because I love these characters, but however you view this is a Sith and Jedi type battle. You can say, well, the Jedi are evil, or no, the Sith are good. It doesn't matter. You have two conflicting ideologies, which are basically same at the core. They use the same type of, I'm exaggerating here in regards to the Jedi and Sith. They both use lightsabers. They both use the Force. They both believe in, one being right over the other, blah, 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 so on and so forth for the science fiction or non-science fiction nerds. That's basically what it's breaking down to. And each side is pointing at each other saying, well, I believe the Jedi are evil. No, the Sith are evil because of this. And nobody's basically sitting down saying, why are we fighting again?
On a bit of a lighter note, that's one of the little things that the prequels got right. That idea of that where they've got that character arc where Anakin actually had perceived the Jedi as evil through the information that he was given. And that perfectly demonstrates modern politics in the sense that through your lens...
I kind of figured you and MC and Ogre would figure out what I was talking about on that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do know Star Wars, and I say, well, if modern society is the way that we pay more attention to movies and fictional characters as opposed to actual American or world history, well, then I'm basically going to say, in Star Wars this happened, and George Lucas, whether you love or hate the guy, he basically made a very valid point. That's how modern society sees things. They see it as either an extreme left or an extreme right. And very rarely are there anybody in the middle, which you would probably say if you're Chewbacca, seeing from both sides, saying, you guys are fighting over this shit. We're trying to deal with this crap over here because of this.
Yeah, but a lot of this stuff in America could have been stopped if the moderates had gotten involved earlier.
Very much true. And they kind of sat on their laurels.
One of the problems, one of the tactics of the left, and that's a very, very good tactic, is they try to engage things and put things in an emotional context. And the reason they do that is to get people away from thinking about the consequences and the logic of the issue. And they've done that for one reason only, and that is their stated purpose. This is the leftist stated purpose, which is to change society, which is to go out there and radically change society. Well, you're seeing the radical change of society coming to the fore today. This is the result in America, all right, of when our structure starts to break down. Okay, now in some ways, the British structure is more stable than ours. All right, because if they break down the governmental structure within the United States, our nation will fragment. There won't be a great holistic whole. We will fragment as a society, all right, from a governmental standpoint, because each little governmental area, all right, has its own role to play. The states have their own role to play. The local police have their own role to play, all right? The judiciary has a role to play. Now what you're seeing within our structure is a breakdown of that. And the left drove it, not by logic, not by appealing to the best in humans. They appealed to emotional stances over logic to justify their viewpoints, and you're seeing the result.
And the thing is, MC, they are also not failing. They're failing to realize two things. They're failing to realize, and if they do realize it, they're just not saying it, because then most people would say, "Oh, you look like a jackass now, don't you?" They're failing to realize, or at least failing to admit, that the more they do this, the more they're forcing somebody's hand out of desperation. I'm going to read something that I wrote on Twitter yesterday. It said, the second someone tries to force your hand to defend yourself is the second you force your hand to defend yourself. That's basically what's happening. Now, the second thing is both sides, and more so to the left than the right, this goes with the first part, they're thinking that they're winning, and in a way they are, but they think that they're going to come out the champions, when in reality, and I hate to use this analogy, you have the devil and you have God and the legions of angels and demons fighting, and then you have everybody else in the middle that's still getting chastised for not picking a side, when it's the people in the middle getting chastised that basically said, we didn't want this in the first place. Thanks, assholes.
And they're fighting over the soul of humanity.
Well, yeah, in a way they are. But that's basically
what I always tell people is that this goes just like a classic Greek tragedy. Like, for example, those tragedies about the gods that try to change their fate, so they meddle in like the earthly goings on to try and avoid a certain fate, and that ends up causing their fate. Now, all these groups that created this fear of Nazis and this idea that there's Nazis under the bed and everything, they are creating the very thing that they are trying to be outraged about, I guess, or the thing that's the antithesis.
They're reinstating a McCarthy era in the age of hip, and that's what one of the things that the hippies and the Black Panthers and everybody fought against. Besides, because there was racial inequality back then during the McCarthyism, is red. It's better to be dead than red. That's exactly what they're becoming, and I've seen this coming from a long time ago, and it's kind of like, you idiots are fighting the thing that you're becoming the thing that you've been trying to fight left and, and I say left and right as in, hand, tooth and nail, so to speak. And you're using the tactics that you say that the enemy use, failing to realize that you're becoming the enemy.
Yeah.
When you stare too long into
the abyss, you become a monster yourself.
Well, what was it? What was it that Harvey Dent said? You die a hero, you see yourself become a villain. That's very poignant.
You live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Exactly.
Yes, thank you. That's
Way
exactly
to quote comic books, boys, and keep it real and philosophical. Nah, I'm just fucking with you.
No, but actually, that's
not a comic book. That's one of the most
actually a really good comic book
movies of the 21st century.
Yeah, no, but it's actually
57. Very good one. It's got a spiritual message in it.
The problem I have with that philosophy is it justifies doing nothing. It justifies the people going a pox on both houses game.
A pox on both houses.
Doesn't it get to the point where sometimes the people that are in the middle that don't want to be on either side because they realize both sides are accomplishing nothing. That's all they feel they can do. And I'm not justifying it. I'm simply saying from me being in that particular, I'm in that camp. I don't want the right to behave that way, and I don't want the left to behave that way. They're embarrassing me as an American. I'm like, fuck you guys. A pox on both of your houses. And yes, I do realize that does come back threefold and backfires.
Well, that's why we're in a lot of ways. That's why we're in. But that's because of how
sometimes that's what people feel.
Hold on, but that's the problem. People are feeling, not thinking.
Because that's Mercutio. You're quoting Mercutio with a pox on both your houses.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, as humans, we often succumb. Yeah, that's very true. It's Mercutio. But the problem, MC, is
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, the problem is, MC, we are humans, we are animals, and we don't appeal to our inner Vulcan or Spock, so to speak, as much as we should. Granted.
Well, no, I agree with you. I understand that, but when you disengage, when you have and people in America have been very good about disengaging themselves, all right, for a long time. They have allowed the situation to get to the point now where violence is taking place. And saying a pox on both houses, saying, going, okay, they're both bad, they're both this and both that, and sitting back and just saying both are bad, both are this, it's not going to fix anything. The violence is going to increase.
And that's where the ultimate conundrum comes in.
But
what's left to give?
What's going to end up happening?
To fix anything. That's the problem. We don't know. Or we do know we're not engaging.
People have got to get back to thinking, okay, how can we sit up there and get the structure back underneath us?
Exactly.
What is the structure that we need to have back underneath us?
Exactly. That's the thing. We're at the point we're acting like we don't know because some of us genuinely don't know.
Well, I understand that, but then start thinking and start looking for solutions. One of the biggest problems that we have is because take a look how we've been driving things. Take a look at the debate that's been going on right now with like Sessions and the whole drug thing and the whole drug culture. Everybody knows that the laws against marijuana are federal laws that were put in place by the legislature. And yet everybody focuses on Jeff Sessions saying, how dare an attorney general, all right, actually try and enforce this law. Well, how about going back to your representatives, all right, and saying, hey, get rid of this law like you're supposed to? Because when you keep waiting for the structure to change around you, it'll change, but the consequences of that change means you're going to end up in a dictatorship. You are basically giving away the legislature, your representation in the government, if you're demanding the executive do these actions. If the executives have the power to do these actions on their own, you are creating a situation for a dictatorship. And the same thing applies when you run to the judiciary because you don't like this law or that law, and so you want to get it overturned. So you judge shop into an area and get it put in place. The legislature is now, in this country, the weakest branch. Why? Because nobody even goes to it to get anything done anymore.
Yeah. Oh, this is interesting, boys. The chat's interesting too. I'm just trying to keep up with both y'all. What the fuck you mean by Newt? Newt?
Unless he's talking about from Alien, I couldn't tell you.
Newt?
No, I'm just kidding. No,
yeah, I don't know. It's with Carrie, it could mean, it could be that, but since she says in.
No, she's laughing. I called her a witch one time, so she sat up there and turned me to a newt. So
okay, all right. Yeah, I get it.
No,
so
I
pox in
agree.
your house, but a newt.
I agree, MC. The problem is,
that's like that's fully Monty Python right there.
It's not my feels versus actual logic. Is we've got a bunch of people. They're just so burned out by all this shit that they just throw their hands up, and whether or not they say a pox on both their houses, it's basically like that meme that says, fuck this shit, I'm out of here. And that leaves a void because they don't have the energy to think of a better way. That becomes the problem. Well, an additional problem amongst other things. And it is a relatively easy problem to solve. It's just people just don't have the energy to try to solve it these days. We've been burned out.
Well, I don't think it's the energy to get involved. I honestly think it's not the discipline to get involved. They don't want to get involved.
So it's the will as opposed to the actual exertion of energy.
Well, yeah. That would take them out of their comfort zone of just sitting back and letting things happen.
Okay.
Even if they've got to do something as simple as to actually investigate what these policies, the political policies, are actually going to result in. All right? People aren't taking the time to invest themselves in doing it. They're not doing the kind of research that it's going to take. Okay, they aren't self-disciplined enough,
and nobody wants to be the bad guy.
Exactly, and all that comes back down to is, oh, this way I can go a pox on both houses. For decades now, when I've tried to engage people into politics, and I'm not talking about on one side versus another side, just engaging people into politics, all you ever end up with, all right, was the moderates going pox on both houses and they walk away.
Well, I think if you ever engage me in politics on a specific level, the only thing I'm ultimately going to tell you is I don't have an answer.
No, and I'm not saying any of these answers necessarily are easy. There's simple answers to some of these things, but they're not necessarily easy. All right, and that's the part that scares
everybody
people.
would be doing it.
Well, it's because it scares people. It's because you have to make choices to sit up there and say, you know what, this person over here, whom I personally know, might be negatively affected.
So it basically breaks down to everybody wants to be Superman, but nobody wants to be Dr. Doom.
No, I want to be Lex Luthor. I already got the haircut.
Well, that's my point. I would rather. I've had conversations with my parents, dealing with my nephews, and especially the one that now has the two girls. When he was first becoming a dad, he would go to his parents who had divorced because they couldn't get along as people, and thankfully they both moved on to better, healthy relationships. He would come to me and say, "Uncle Dade, I need your advice." I said, "No." He goes, "Well, what do you mean no?" And I said, "I don't have an answer for you." He goes, "Why not?" I said, "Because I'm a single parent. My marriage fluctuated, so I don't know what to tell you. I've never raised 3 kids. I don't know what, blah, blah, blah." Little did I realize that my experience, what he sought out was my experience as a dad. Whether the child was male or female was irrelevant. I didn't realize that until, 10, 15 minutes into the conversation. And so then I realized, oh, I've got to be the villain. And I went and told my mom this later. She goes, "Yeah, you had to be the bad guy," because he got pissed off at me because he heard what he didn't want to hear. But ultimately, it sunk in, and he realized that I had played the villain to make him realize that sometimes you got to be the bad guy to get positive results. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody consistently wants to bicker and fight and point fingers. When they point the one finger and they got 3 pointing back, and they don't realize why they got 3 pointing back, they're too busy pointing the one finger. So I would rather play the villain and be proven wrong. And I don't mind being proven wrong because I won't lose any sleep over it, because odds are I'll learn something and hopefully the other person will have learned something. But nobody wants to do that.
Well, nobody wants to also sit up there and take the hit themselves. There's a lot of things that people want to do, all right, but they're not self-disciplined to bite the bullet themselves because they know they're going to be negatively affected. And I said earlier, I'd said that a lot of people don't want to do it because they personally know somebody that was going to be affected, which is true. But it's also the fact that they themselves are going to be negatively affected.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, there's consequences to a lot of these things. All right. And yeah, but the biggest problem that you have right now, all right, is going back to Charlottesville. Is like, look, there are people on Twitter right now that think that the right here suffered a major blow, that people will this is the end of the alt-right. Are you kidding me? All right. How can you have that view? Well, you have that view because you got people going, well, a pox in both houses. All right. And because these guys now are equated with Antifa, it'll all go away. All right. Because both sides are bad. That doesn't stop those people. That doesn't.
Yeah, they basically just sacrificed Anakin Skywalker, and they're now going to get Darth Vader, which was worse, and they don't realize it.
Holy shit! From comic books to movies, but what I saw was it looked to me like there may have been a little bit of instigating on both sides. I'm not sure that there was not some staged elements on both sides. I mean, it looks to me like I was showing something earlier I found on Twitter where some of the autistic army got together and they found this dude that was like pretending to be, or that was whatever, was pretending to be alt-right, had the shield with the little lightning things on it and whatever.
Well,
they showed him earlier with the Antifa hanging out with them, you know, and you could see in his bag, you could see his get up where he was ready to change.
Well, that's the first indication you can basically say that, yeah, it was staged, and it wasn't because it was conspiracy theory bullshit. It was the fact that
it just is.
Social media being what it is, everybody does whatever they think they want, and they can be the keyboard cowboys out in the wild west of the internet and not suffer any consequences. Lo and behold, we have a shootout at the OK Corral, and everybody but maybe Doc Holliday just got away. And he's gimping on one leg because somebody infiltrated something else, and that's how those two groups of assholes knew to be there. When ironically enough, anytime BLM or Antifa has done something while they've known about it, most of the people, and I'm not saying, and I'm just clarifying here, MC, as historical fact, not, you know, to say anything different, is that when we had the shit with Berkeley with Antifa, there were people to basically say, the cops and other people were there to say, hey, you know, that's fine. You can have your protest all you want, but the second you get out of line, we're going to jump in. This isn't what that was. That was, you're having a protest? Fuck you. You can't
We're
do
gonna jump in. Yeah, man, in Berkeley, they've never called it what they're calling this whole deal. They were calling them, oh man, every name in the book that meant rabble rouser, instigator, and terrorist. When Antifa's out there, it's just like, oh, they're peaceful protesting. They're burning stuff down in the street, smashing stuff and throwing fireworks. And it's like, they're just,
you know that, and that's the thing that Antifa and BLM do not realize is that if they pull this shit in certain towns, the federal government is not going to jump in. The state government is not going to jump in. They're going to go to towns and try to pull a shit where they're going to meet people with armed resistance. And we're like, no, I worked hard to build my house. You think you're going to throw a Molotov cocktail through it? Fuck you, boom, you're dead. Oh, this person died. It was tragic. Well, I'm sorry, but the state law basically says I have a right to use the Second Amendment to defend my home and my property, and I had to shoot them because they didn't.
The thing about that is when stuff was still remaining local, that was one thing.
Yeah.
But this thing that you saw happen in Charlottesville wasn't a local event.
The governor made it state. The governor of Virginia made it federal. That fucking idiot could have basically manned up and did what Donald Trump said. Hey, you guys are both acting like assholes in my state. Get out. But no.
Yeah, that's true. All right. But the reality is that you're seeing these situations where people are roaming throughout the country now. You had people from Antifa, you had people from the alt-right coming in from all over the country. This thing is spreading all over the country, and they're going to do it. Both sides now are going to feel emboldened to go into the quote-unquote home turf of the other areas, all right, to protest and have rallies in the hopes of provoking violent clashes.
And they will succeed on a certain level, but where they will fail is they don't realize this isn't a game to a lot of us. We don't care about the alt-right. We don't care about Antifa or BLM. You come onto our turf, you threaten our citizens, we're going to blow you away. And
they're
we'll get
not
away
going
with it
to come to Iowa to do a
No,
protest.
I'm making a generalized statement. They think
All right,
this
but I understand that. But now, anywhere in California, are they going to sit up there and do it anywhere in California? Yeah, they can do it in a lot of places in California. Are they going to do it in lots of places in the South, like New Orleans or Atlanta? Yeah, they're going to do it there. There's going to be provocations in these in Boston, right? You're going to see an alt-right rally happen in Boston. I guarantee you. All right,
Yeah, but
and violence
don't
is going
say
to take
Iowa.
place.
Don't say that I'm referring to my home state. I'm making a generalized statement. They're going to go into other people's turfs where this isn't a game, and I'm not talking about just farm boys. I'm talking about people that have that are ranchers, farmers, even gang members. You're going to roll through the hood of whatever major city, and you think the gang and criminal elements are going to care? No, you're expendable to them. They don't give a shit about your political ideology. That's something they fail to realize. They're going to mess with an element no matter how you label them or no matter what you say they are.
Go in those areas.
Get destroyed.
They're going to go to those areas, all right, to be shown as martyrs, right, and gain followers, just like what happened in Charlottesville. That's what's going to happen. The Antifa, like I said, are going to do it, and so is the alt-right.
Yes.
Right? These neo-Nazis, they're going to do the same thing, and they're going to gain followers every single time because there's too many local areas, all right, that will tell the police to stand down rather than to sit up there and put a stop to this nonsense immediately. In the case of Charlottesville, all right, you had a situation where these people had a permit to sit up there and march their vile, bigoted bullshit, all right? Fine. Okay. As soon as the Antifa people started breaking down those barriers to start coming in, immediately they should have gone in there and started arresting anybody who crossed that barrier. And instead, what did they do? They said, okay, well, you guys have to move. And the police basically shoved the two groups together. Now, this is the kind of stuff, all right? This isn't an accident. Okay, this is not a mistake, all right, that they did it this way. This is what was trying to be provoked by a group of people, all right, who want these kinds of clashes. And whether people want to admit it or not, many of the people that they elected to office enjoy this crap because this is what they want.
Are you done?
Yes.
Fine. Now that you've had your little rant, which I completely agree with, I would like you to simply acknowledge that yes, the outcome will be they will be martyrs, but also they will go into areas thinking they can pull this crap. And yes, they will run into criminal element, whether they realize it or not, and they will become martyrs because of their own stupidity. That was the only point I was trying to make.
No, and I agree with you, but the thing is that they want to be martyred, but people don't have got to understand. They want to be martyred.
MC, I do understand. That's why I said, yes, I agree. You are correct. I just wanted to make sure everybody else understood that we both had our valid points to make and that we were representing different sides of this will lead to more.
You're validated, Zero.
That will bring more numbers of idiots being stupid.
I'm not sure MC needs it. You're validated, Zero. Don't worry.
Well, I believe MC's validated too. He makes a damn logical and good point. My point that I was trying to bring across is, and I think he'll agree with me.
You sleep easy tonight now, MC.
I think he'll agree with me is that they have an ego that is becoming rapidly expansive, thinking they can do whatever they want, and they're failing to realize they'll run either side, any group. It doesn't matter what you call them, whether you call them the alt-right, the white nationalists, BLM or Antifa, whatever you want to call them.
Wow, they have far different ranging power, though. Those organizations.
It's not about power. I'm talking about ego. They're all getting to the point where their egos are so overinflated, they feel that they're invincible and say, oh, if a member dies, and like MC said, boom, martyrs. But what they're going to fail to realize is, how are they martyred? Now, oftentimes, and people in the modern age that I've run across, which they don't pay attention to history, they fail to accept the way a person was martyred. And they're going to come across people that are of the criminal element who are only existing to make money their way, and if you get in their way, they'll take care of you, and they won't be acknowledged as heroes. They say, oh, this person did this, and then that's going to bring more heat, and that's going to create more numbers to the cause, and that's going to create more martyrs, but it's going to be martyrdom in a very nasty fashion.
Do they get 70? Do you get the virgins and whatnot? Do you get the 72 virgins?
And ultimately, well, whatever. But ultimately, they'll fail to realize in the long run, what they were doing wasn't heroic and changed nothing but the landscape of America for the worse, and they don't care. And yes, MC is correct. We do have idiot government officials on all levels that basically are saying, yeah, go for it. They don't give a shit. They're not losing any sleep. I didn't lose any sleep over this. I'm not going to lose any sleep over this tonight. The only thing I'm going to do is say a prayer for the woman's family who died and the people that are injured, because right, left, up, down, left, wrong, whatever. These people were hurt. And I'm hoping that some of them, the ones that will use logic, as MC said, will realize this is a fucking wasted venture. And if they don't, more to come. And that's it.
But how are you? The question still remains, though. Yeah, I understand that. But the question still remains. How are you going to stop it? If you're not willing to use force, if you're not willing to use governmental force, whether people like this term or not, if you're not willing to use governmental force to put an end to this kind of crap from happening, it's going to continue to happen, and it's going to grow.
Yes.
All right, they have watered down the structure of our government to the point where this is even possible. It's not even possible. It's acceptable.
Yeah. And state and city officials and forces, and people don't like to use the word force. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. In my town of the Quad Cities, if they were to pull this shit, our cops would let the citizens handle it, because the police, unfortunately, they're the ones that are getting kicked in the balls for this more than anybody. Well, we don't want police fascism and terrorism. Okay, fine. You know, these fuckers, they're not going to go on strike. They'll just say, yeah, I'll take 5 cream-filled donuts and my partner will take 5 jelly-filled while you're out there killing yourselves. And I'll be sitting in the coffee shop with the cop saying, yeah, can I get a sprinkled glazed?
Okay, I think I'm gonna opt out. I still have some work that I need to do. But
thanks for swinging by, Carol.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, so hectic.
No problem, man. It's always interesting to listen.
Come by anytime, brother.
Cheers, guys.
So basically, what MC and I are getting to is the whole thing with Charlottesville is, again, a progression of the worst kind from what it was in Ferguson, and it's growing at a rampant pace. And we need people to be the bad guy, not in that way, but to say, hey, you know what? You can villainize me all you want, but in the long run, I'm going to be the good guy and you're going to be the idiot. And nobody's doing it, because it's an MC. I think you'll agree when I say with the old mentality of, oh, it's happening over there. That's fine. It doesn't bother me. And it never bothers anybody till it's at their door.
That's true. But those of us, all right, who have stood the line of fire for a long time, we've taken fire from both sides. And unfortunately, the person who's going to sit up there and stop this, if a person's going to sit up there and actually become engaged in it, they're going to be hit from both sides. They're going to have to try and take a stand to stop both ends of this. And what has happened in our society is, not only don't I want to be perceived as the bad guy, I don't want to be the person who's taking fire. That's one of the reasons why I actually voted for Trump, because one of the things he did do is he said on both sides, there's a lot of things I totally disagree with Trump about. Unfortunately, he's the only one that was saying, I'll take fire from both sides. And he has been.
I kind of want to address something right here, because I can't agree with it more. than this. Jack Radio says, this is a direct result of 8+ years of anti-white rhetoric and media shaming of white men. Americans have a serious problem heading their way. The world forgot the white male. And it does appear that way to me, folks, without going all, because I'm not all.
No, you make a very valid point. But what I think, Jack, and I'm going to agree with Jack here, I think that's something that people are failing to realize is that, and it goes back to what I said, that you take white people out of the equation, watch how fast their civilization. And this isn't necessarily true about everything, but with America being colonized the way it has been, you take white men especially and the certain structure out of the way, you're left with all these people that want to fill this power, it becomes a power vacuum, and they don't have the leadership skills because they weren't taught the leadership skills to do anything. It'll fall into chaos and corruption. Even more so, because they don't know what the hell they're doing. When I started working on a farm, I didn't have a effing clue what I was doing about baling hay. My grandpappy said to me, go over, and by the way, this is a 75-pound bale of hay. And I'm 10. Yeah, go ahead and move that bale of hay, Mr. Smartmouth. Yeah, I can do it. I can do it. I know exactly what I'm doing. Yeah, okay. Didn't have a fucking... And I ruined myself for about a week.
Yeah, well, I was just seeing this. It's been coming down, but it has been ramped up, especially in the last 8 years, maybe 10, to where that's just the way it is. I mean,
no, you can thank Obama and his administration.
You can go all the way back to... really, the Bundys with
you can go back to Clinton,
married with children, you can go back further down, sure, but this idea that there's a bumbling white dude there, if there's a white dude, and of course you would never ask him any advice about anything because he's just dumb. He probably makes good money, but he's just a bumbling idiot. And anyway, and it's come up to this point to where
of Bill Clinton, this whole North Korea thing,
the rhetoric changed, and it went. This got really hardcore suddenly, that certain groups couldn't be racist. Man, I've never heard that. I know black people, and oh man, my friend Myron was telling me that it's just a joke that black people are the most racist people, he said, because he's black, he knows more. See what I mean? Is what I attribute to that. But he was telling me how, and I know this, I've lived down south for too long in black neighborhoods. Black people are racist within themselves. You're too light-skinned, or you're real dark, or you're a thick...
Oh, yeah, they beat on themselves, and then they actually see a person from Africa, and then they go apeshit. No pun intended.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. So anyway, without diverting off into that or making anything about black and white, because I agree with when I seen...
but that's actually part of the crux of the whole Charlottesville situation, too, though.
Yeah, is it? When I seen Ann Coulter debating this Anna Kasparian, and she said, we've always been a biracial country. Man, I've been saying that for a long time. I'll let you hammer on Zero here in just a second, but because this is all, when I hear this, it's like, when would a white person ever have a platform without being called alt-right? And I'm not all for these, I'm not for in any way any of these Ku Kluxes or any of these groups anymore. I am BLM or any of these groups that are for race above anything else. Not for them. But when has it become to where, I mean, if you're white and you have any care for something bad happening to somebody that looks like you, you're evil. You don't even have a say.
In the 1980s, it became governmental policy to say that black people can't be racist. And they were teaching that throughout the government. Damn. And I can tell you that right now, because when I was in the military, that was one of the things in the equal opportunity classes we had that was directly told to us. So the U.S. government has been promoting that philosophy, all right, literally for half a century.
What about a Chinese? Can they be prejudiced?
They didn't even mention Chinese. It was only black.
See, man, that shows an intent that they want to make a rivalry between two. That shows intent. They didn't mention nobody else.
And they taught this in the equal opportunity class. They were teaching this whole crap about institutional racism, about the situation of the structure is, well, you don't have the same education. This is the example they give. because you're not educated, you can't get these jobs. Well, because more black people are uneducated than white people, that's institutional racism. Therefore, we need to throw out the standards so we get more black people. That was being taught, and that was being taught by the federal government, by the equal opportunity officers of the federal government.
Lord have mercy.
And I guarantee if that was being taught to us in the military, it definitely filtered down to every single government organization where this stuff gets promoted.
It's a damn shame because look what it's come to now. I mean, now it's everywhere. It's not just government, it's everywhere. That's just you can't tell a group that they're downtrodden, that everybody's against them, and that they can't be, racist themselves. If you do that, you create a group of people that all those things may become self-fulfilling prophecies. Some of them may. You will definitely create a group of people that feel like those things are the truth or have that excuse. And in some cases, look, you could say all those things about a group of people in some situations. But let's face it, man, not about black folk in our country, man. I don't know any racists personally, so I don't really know how to treat that, because all the colors and different races that I know from some of the Pinos that I know is what we call the Filipinos. They call themselves Pinos. From all the people that I know, they're just people, is what it comes down to it. We have different little cultures and different little qualms. Like, in Japan, people think that they're all tattooed up, but there's actually, if you got tattoos and you can see them, there's most water parks, you can't go to them unless you keep, if you go in there covered up, anyway, because they sit with gangs. Things are different everywhere. What my question is this to y'all. I've been thinking about this and thinking about this. Everybody talks about diversity.
Something burning.
Everybody talks about diversity. Everybody talks about how you got to be inclusive, but where'd they talk about that? Why is this diversity and this idea of forgetting about your culture and yet you get in trouble for cultural appropriations? Why isn't that ever in Tokyo, Japan, or Beijing, China?
You answered your own question.
Well, then answer it for me, because I didn't find it. I didn't hear it.
Just rethink about what you said. Why don't you find this in Tokyo, Japan,
I
or
just
Beijing,
want to
China?
make a discussion about it, but go ahead. Why?
Because America is not those countries. We are a country of different people from different other countries with different nationalities, different skin tones, with different flavors. That's a way diversity
So
makes
you can't be proud to be whatever you are. You couldn't be proud to be Italian or.
Okay, you realize you're talking to a nationalist, right?
Well, I'm just asking you. I mean,
I'm trying to answer your question. I was born in the mid to late 70s. I come from an America where everybody is not the same skin tone and does not eat the same food, and that's the America I grew up in. And that's exactly, but that's what makes America great. Not one skin tone or one so-called race over another. America. If you're an American, you help make American great, or you make America fail miserably.
Well, what's happening now is a certain group of people are being told that they're very, very bad and they're the cause of all the ill, and everything in society is engineered toward them, when the fact is, if you are a poor white dude, you're in trouble. You're not going to be able to get a lot of help and academic help with paying for school. You give loans. Right. You're not going to get a lot of help in any.
You're right, Ogre, that they are being taught that. But who's been driving that?
White people.
I have an idea that it's like George Soros and the leftists,
because they want to destroy this country.
Yeah, the commies and all their pictures in Russia, man, they would have all these cubist freaking, the weird angular art that they'd have and for their propaganda, and they would show like Chinese and black folk and everything. When's the last time you saw a black man in Dagnab, Moscow, man? Ain't nothing but white people up there unless you go to way up north and then there's some Asiatic-looking folk. But anyway, I mean, it's all a joke, and it is a commie leftist tactic to get people against each other. They win both ways, because they're able to really they hurt both races in doing that. Create one as a victim that has got this excuse always in their back pocket, and then they paint them out to be. I mean, I got to look at the idea of incarceration and whatnot and ask myself some questions about that. Anybody that doesn't, I think,
Well, then that's why the left has a problem with somebody like me, because they try to pull this shit, and I just turn to them and say, I don't give a fuck. Well, you have to. It's like, no, I really don't. That's what makes them pissed off more than anything, because I still choose to tell them, piss off. They don't like that I choose. And that's what they want. No, they don't like my choice.
Oh, the
and
lefties.
That's what anybody. Exemplified, but exemplified in either the if you want to use the you know left or right, all is well. No, that's what people don't like. They don't like choice. They want to control things, and what they fail to realize is, as long as there's one person on this planet that says the exact opposite, you can never genuinely control a person. Because even if you wipe that person out, somebody else will come back and say, no, I've seen what you did to this person. I don't like it. So no, I don't have to do what you say. I'll fight against it. This is shit they don't realize. And instead of letting it go and letting people have their freedom of choice, they try to grasp harder. And the more you try to strangle something, the more it slips through your fingers.
That's all well and good unless one side is disciplined and the other side isn't. Because the disciplined side will then wipe out the other side for all intents and purposes.
Oh,
that's what the danger is.
I didn't say it wasn't dangerous. And I'm not saying that you're completely wrong on that. I don't actually agree that discipline, and I can prove that being a person of chaos on a certain level, no amount of discipline can tame me. And I've dealt with the police. I've dealt with state troopers. I've dealt with federal agents. I've had them come to my door because they didn't like that I said something to my mayor. I've had people say to me, you have to be quiet. And I go, no, make me be quiet.
Here, check this out. This is kind of funny. Staggerson did this.
The left. Are you tired of the right? Join us now. Shirk your skin and rise up in bones. Join the skeleton army, for the skeleton war is nigh. There are no politics here. There is no alt-right. There are no SJWs. There are only flesh coats and the skinless bone warriors. Choose your side, for the skeleton war is now.
Under the shadow of the new Praetorian.
So where's my Black Lantern ring, Jaggerson, you fucking ass? I want to be part of the Black Lantern Corps too and shit.
Yeah, no shit. I turned my stuff into a skeleton even. I got like a skeleton in my thingy. I've not changed my what-you-call-it for a while. Oh, man, look, James Woods just sent me a DM. I asked him a question a while ago. I'm telling you, the guy's cool.
The actual James Woods.
Yeah, I'll screen share it. The real James Woods. I just asked him a while ago now. I've asked him June 27th if there's a movie that he'd recommend when I wasn't really feeling terrible and I just wanted to feel good. You see this right here? Present to everybody. James Woods follows me and he fucking...
Why don't you ask him to come in the chat with us?
Oh, Lord. I already asked him I asked him if he would check out a video, and he did. He watched it. But I asked him slyly. I was like, and if you like it, man, you can say something. Just like it. Just put a thumbs up and put a little, hey, this was cool in the thing. And he was like,
give him the link
he
to
said,
join
he said,
us.
listen, this was his answer. I can't do that, man, because I have to do it for everybody. And besides that, let's face it, when James Woods goes on little things, man, to do his talk shows and whatnot, they pay him, man. He don't just show up to Good Morning America or whatnot just out of the wild blue. They give him a bag with a bunch of cool shit in it, and they give him like 25 grand for showing up. I don't have 25 grand in a gift bag. But yes, I just asked him about some movies, and then he says, thanks. Favorite feel-good movie is Mr. Deeds Goes to Town with Gary Cooper. So I'm going to check that out. That is a direct answer to me from James Woods, and I asked him about his favorite feel-good movie, and he just says, Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. I'm going to check that out for sure.
I want to make so many Grand Theft Auto jokes right now.
If he does ever follow anybody that can hear me, you included, Zero, I would suggest ask him a question, but don't ask it 3 or 4 times, whatever. Ask it once. It might take him, in this case, a month, close to a month to answer. But in some cases, he's answered me like in the same day, and then we had like a little conversation. The guy is freaking cool. I'll say that. He is a notch above most celebrities. Maybe I'll get the balls up one day to ask him on the chat, but I know what he'll say. And then I'll feel like I've already asked him to do two things. I don't want to be a pesterer, man. I always want to have that little channel with him. It's kind of, he's ever since I've seen Once Upon a Time in America, I mean, the guy is the quintessential. They say De Niro and whatnot. Now he's the ultimate bad guy, gangster, or cop to me. You can't get better than him. But anyway, blah, blah, blah. Just trying to brag, I guess, but not really. I just was excited. I seen he answered me. I seen I got a message, and I just checked to see who it was, and it's the ineffable James Woods. You know, that's kind of cool. It made my day. Oh, anyway.
Well, Mr. Woods is actually one of the people. Mr. Woods is actually one of the people that he's one of those people that when he did movies, and he is part of a dying breed. And I'm not gonna say that if he came out with a movie that was great, I'd go out and see it in the theaters, because odds are I wouldn't. Not because it's Mr. Woods, because I don't trust Hollywood. I've basically been red pilled since 1986. So thanks, Dave Mustaine. That helped. And but you know, within the last 13, 14 years, I've seen how people behave. And when you get people saying you can't say this and you can't say that, and then James Woods and Clint Eastwood, and they're saying what they're saying, whether you like it or not, and that's fine, that's how they roll. That really just goes to show that the classic days of Hollywood have been dead and buried since Citizen Kane. Because ultimately there's always been an agenda of some sort. And even when it was a liberal agenda, at least they knew their place enough to say, that's fine, go ahead and make your movie over here, we don't give a shit.
Yeah, because he had, like you say, it'd go all the way back to Gary Cooper. He didn't recommend nothing recent. That's old. Yeah, Hollywood's been, I don't know, it is what it is. I still enjoy my movie now and then, but I do find myself watching more on-demand stuff that I like. And recently, I've been watching a lot of reality TV from Great Britain that really shows the worst side of them, like Neighbors from Hell, and You Must Pay or We'll Take It Away. It's just some rough stuff, man. And it shows kind of, but you get to learn the lingo that way because everybody's pissed off and they're like, you know, getting down with the language.
I was on a live stream last night from with Russell with video games, and the dude's all the way over in Japan. He's actually an American though, but he was fucking busting up laughing at 99% of the shit that I was talking about. It was probably because his audience was mid-30s to early 20s, and he's probably maybe 30. So to have this guy come in that's like 42, 43, start busting up the chat room and all that shit, he was loving it. And I said, well, you know, the reason that, he says, well, you're actually kind of funny. So, well, the reason that you would think that I'm funny, and he goes, yeah. And I said, well, I don't see things the way that most people do. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm older, so I really pay more attention to movies and video games and comic books and stuff from like since 1939 all the way till about 2010. And he says, yeah, I see that. And I see that because I noticed that a lot of people, when they make other references to stuff, it's more modern, and then even I don't get it. And we were talking about Jesse Ventura and doing quotes and all this other shit. And my point was, some political stuff came up, but we managed to simply just wash that away with complete cheese and say, no, we're done with this shit. We don't have to do all this fucking other crap. And it was refreshing. And it wasn't because I was the center of attention. It was the fact that I had guys that were in their 20s saying, oh, I've never seen that. And then they'll now go out and see it. And then, you know, they said, I want to go see that. And it's like, so hopefully they'll go out and see that. And that will hopefully expand their mind a little bit. And that's one of the things that we have as a society. We have the problem of taking a step back from ourselves and saying, hey, can you recommend something that isn't modern? Oh, yeah, go ahead. And, you know, like if they said to me, hey, Dade, where do I start with Batman? I said, well, you've got a lot of ground to make up on. What do you want to know? Well, I want something that's going to entertain me. I said, okay, fine. Start with something in 1990. Because if they say to me, well, I want something that I want to know about what he was originally like, I said, okay, well, go find a first reprint of Detective Comics 27 all the way through Batman number 50. You know, there's that thing. People are becoming, and MC, I think you'll agree, and this is political in a way because and unfortunately it leads to this. We're becoming very close-minded to where we can't sit down and be proven wrong or take suggestions from anybody else. about things that we don't know anything about. So we are becoming ignorant in a way, and it's not because of the education system. It's because we're being.
I disagree with you there.
Well,
It's
that's
because of
fine.
the
No.
education
Let me finish. It is because we are blasted left and right with so much bullshit. Now the floor is yours, sir.
No, I disagree with you. You're right in the effects, right? But to look at the education system today and say that they're not at fault for this, I disagree with you vehemently. The biggest problem with the education system that we have in the United States is they have no standards. They don't accept standards on their students. They don't enforce standards on their students. They're afraid of standards. They want everybody they possibly can to be in the schools, all right, so that they can, quote unquote, be their parent, but then they turn around and don't actually enforce any kind of standards within those schools. They're afraid of getting sued. They're afraid of somebody coming back and going, my little Johnny or my little Mary Sue wouldn't do X, Y, or Z. Therefore, you have to sit up there and accept them for how they are. There's no standardization that takes place. There's people that keep running around going, well, the students are individuals and I want their individuality to flow. I don't want to try and cookie cutter them. Well, that's all well and good, but children are individuals naturally. You don't have to teach them to be individuals. What you have to teach them is that there's societal standards that need to be applied to them. When you ignore these facts, when you've got the idea that everyone has to come to school, everybody, okay, even the ones that don't want to learn, they're going to be placed into the same group with the people that do want to learn. This feeds into this narrative. This feeds into this concept.
I concede. You are. I agree with you. You are correct.
Y'all ever play Battletoads?
I never got past the second stage of that game.
Good game. It's good
I've never played Battletoads, though.
The verses is good.
MC didn't have to play Battletoads. He was out fucking doing real battle. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, well, a lot of people still did both. I know a killer, Stone Cold Killer, that's, I mean, he loves first-person shooters, but anyway.
But yeah, MC, and a lot of times I actually go back and I watch these videos and we do sound like we're in a bit of an echo chamber. But one of the things I like about debating with you is, and we do debate, I do learn something, and I think that's something that even if you get a group of 2 or 3 people that see things roughly on the same political side, whether they're different dynamics of the same side, whatever. Because of our life experience being what they are and everybody's different on their... See, that's a form of diversity that works. We all have different life experiences that we can bring to the table. And I'm humble enough to say, well, while I do, come across as rude sometimes by saying, let me finish, only because I'm on a roll. And yes, you actually brought to the point, yes, where you said Zero, Dade, you're right on the effects, but here's the cause. A lot of times people can't even get to that. And then to come back and have me say, MC, you brought up a very good point there. I concede, because I was overpowering the entire subject with just the after effect of something as not giving enough notice to the root cause. And a lot of things, and then you're right, and I've said this to myself, especially to my nephew and his wife, and I get on their butt about it, and they tell me to shut up and said, bite me. I say, I don't want my grandnieces to be spoiled little brats. And they say, well, they're special. My nephew says, well, they're special. And I'm like, no, they're going to be the best, and I name them that they can be. And your job is to make them the best, and I name them they can be, not because they're snowflakes. That pisses his wife off because she's a preschool teacher, and she's in a union, but she is smart enough to know not to incur my wrath about that, because my mom, my dad hate unions. And I'm not trying to go into that subject, but that's the difference of mentality. That's the difference of how we were raised. And that's something that a lot of people don't bring to the table. They don't think about, oh, this person doesn't live the same life I do. Now, they may live in certain circumstances that are similar, but nobody genuinely lives day by day the same life as anybody else. So while everybody can agree to disagree on a lot of things if they're willing, I can admit I am ignorant on certain things because I don't know, not because I'm stupid, because I genuinely don't know until somebody says something. And that, I would like to add, is what goes into the lack of the education system in America.
Well, it's just a commie mill anymore. The education system, it's a joke.
Oh, well, don't tell the Asian people that because they're. I
was watching all these
starting
fights.
They're starting to get their kerfuffle too, Ogre.
And the public school system in Florida's gone to hell. I was watching all these incidences that are caught in camera now, and the schools are choosing not to really do anything about these. I mean, some of the things that are happening in our education system
because places like the ACL
I don't have kids.
I go to the YMCA practically every other day, and if my leg's hurting. Because it's going to be fucked up for the rest of its life. I may go once every 2 days and then maybe 3 days in a row. I'll have these little kids basically come up to me and mouth off to me, and I say, I've said this, and I'm going to sound like a bad guy here, and I'm going to be the bad guy because maybe I was wrong. I don't care. But I've said to kids that are like 10 or 11 or 12 years old saying, I don't care who your mom, and I will definitely talk down to them, and I'll go, I don't care who your mommy and daddy are. If you don't knock your shit off, I'm going to throw your ass in that basketball court, you little brat. And it's like they've never heard that. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to the real world. You're in for a rude awakening. And they're like, Arr! And then oddly enough, the next time they see me, they won't cringe in fear. They'll come up to me and say, oh, hey, Mr. Dad, and I'll name them and say, hey, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm doing great, blah, blah, blah. I say, how's school going, blah, blah, blah. And they realize they've run across somebody who is not intimidated or scared of the police or their teachers or their parents, and they'll have an actual communication, a way of communication with somebody that genuinely gives a shit about them because they basically said, here's the line in the sand, you don't cross it, you do, you know what's going to happen. Now, I'm sure that does sound cold and cruel to a certain extent, but that's kind of what adults have had to come to, as opposed to, again, being nurturing and leading the way. But again, that's just my personal experience. I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I'm not saying I'm 100% wrong. That's just what I've seen and I've had to do. And unfortunately, that kind of mentality, which I was raised with, of that there's always a bigger fish, has been immensely pulled out from a lot of facets of current American society. And I will reiterate, MC, that the groups that are getting too big in their ego, that are going to, and again, they will be martyred. How they will be martyred will depend on where they go, because they will run across people that have the mentality of there's always a bigger fish, and they'll be vastly worse off than I was to that child.
Well, that's a possibility.
Well, the idea that a child can't be talked to, you can't talk to my child like that. Well, you're wrong. Okay? Anybody who's ever said that, they're wrong.
Yeah.
You can talk to your child like that. Now, maybe they shouldn't, all right? But the reality is that's part of freedom of speech as well. Now, does that mean they have the right to touch that child? Absolutely not. Okay? But if your child is by themselves in a different area and they get a talking to, right? Even if you're in the general area, but in the specific area, somebody sits there and says something to your child, well, guess what? You should have been more aware of where your child was. You should have been there to make sure that your child wasn't in a situation where something like that could necessarily happen, or you should have been paying attention to what that child was doing, both from the standpoint of, as my child doing something wrong, and from the standpoint of, am I protecting my child? People have forgotten that kind of responsibility and accountability. Now, it used to be not a big deal because society as a whole recognized that if a child needed to be verbally dressed down by an adult, that was acceptable. Nowadays, oh, no, that's not acceptable. That's emotional abuse.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, that's also something that I don't think parents willingly teach their kids, is they're going to run into all sorts of people that don't give a shit. And I'm not talking about bad people. They're going to run into people that are adults, teenagers are vicious bastards. They have no off filter these days, and they have no filter for the on and off button these days. I'm sorry, but you know, I didn't either when I was that age. Not because I was a punk ass teenager, it's because I was a teenager. I was an asshole. I thought I knew everything I was supposed to know, and then whoops, you know, then the real world came with paying bills. And kids these days don't realize that they're going to run across adults that don't give a shit. Not because, again, not because they're bad. It's because we've got things to do. And if I'm supposed to make X amount of dollars to pay X amount of bills and you're in my way, I'm going to shove you out of my way. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of the problem is kids are not taught that. When I was young, you know, you could get sent down to the headmasters and get 5 of the best with a paddle that had holes drilled in it. It would leave a remembering. You would remember it for something like, you know, throwing a spitball or really causing a ruckus in the class. Do something bad, get in a fight, get your ass whacked 10 times. And once you had that done, you never want it done again. And I'm not saying, I mean, I got paddled a couple of times because I was a jerk. I mean, looking back, I don't know what they do now. Nowadays, what they have is they have these situations where these kids are just completely out of control. No respect at all for authority. So, I don't know, the idea of corporal punishment, I'm absolutely for it. And I do agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. Nobody cares. That's the problem is now everybody wants everybody to care about little Johnny and little Susie. Nobody cares about little Johnny and little Susie unless it's their little Johnny or little Susie. Yours, they don't care about them. The only thing they care about is they got to go and make their living, and they don't really want to have a hassle from your children. That's it.
And ultimately, to bring it back to the very beginning topic of this live stream, is everything that we've mentioned since I've started talking, you started talking, Caracal was here, and MC was here. All this garbage has culminated into a huge garbage barge that has manifested itself into everything from Ferguson to everything else, and now Charlottesville.
Yeah.
And so it becomes, and now MC, I really want you to chime in after this, man. From my viewpoint, which is only my viewpoint, because that's the only way I can see things is me. Are we or are we not stuck in a vicious cycle right now? Because it seems to me we are. What do we do? How do we get rid of the mentality and the attitude of a pox on both your houses?
Well, in order to break that, I think in some ways that is happening already. All right. Because a lot of this was created when the media had complete control of the narrative. Okay. And now that the media has lost a lot of that control, all right, they still have a lot of power and they still have a lot of influence. They still can drive a narrative from time to time, although it's not nearly as monolithic as it used to be. Right? As long as that continues, you will see things happen. The problem that we have right now is you don't have a self-disciplined society. You don't have people that are self-disciplined. And excuses after excuses have to be made. You've got to bring back standards in society. And when you bring back a standard, whether people like it or not, when you start to say this is the standard, other people are going to resist that standard because they're going to say that impinges upon my individual freedom. And that's true. All right. That is an accurate assessment. Okay. But unfortunately, we're at a stage now where that has to be implemented. You're going to have to go back to to some societal standards, both that are reinforced both by elder people, by religious people, by non-religious people, but it's also going to have to be something that's also codified within certain laws now, because we've lost the standardization. It's either that, or in this country, if you want to do it from that perspective, the only way you're going to fix the problems in the United States right now is if you call a convention of states. I fully believe that now. I don't think the federal government at this point in time can be changed, all right, through the normal processes. You've got to get people involved. You've got to get people involved locally, and you've got to sit up there and call a convention of states, because at that point, people will start paying attention, and at that point, people will start caring.
Convention of states for what, though? What would be the
rewriting the Constitution of the United States, rewrite the governmental structure. The federal government structure has to be rewritten now.
Huh. What would you change?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would sit up there and make it so that every judge that has been on a federal bench for over a certain number of years are automatically fired. And the other judges will be appointed by this group. That's the first thing that I would do. The second thing that I would do is start instituting different requirements for the legislative process. For one thing, I would sit up there and bring in term limits. You can only run, all right, or be elected twice to the same type of office consecutively. Anything more than being reelected or serving on consecutive terms, you're then going to have to step away. So if you've got a senator that has been, he's a senator, he gets reelected as senator, his next term is going to be open. Same thing with the legislative. If you have a congressman and he's been a congressman in this term and he ran for re-election, he is then automatically that next term he can't run for.
Congressman's terms are only 2 years. I would say maybe put some kind of time limit on it. In other words, since it's 6 years for senators,
everybody should have 4 years across the board, and get rid of the lobbyist while you're at it. Get rid of the lobbyist and the word filibuster. Take that word and strike it from the lexicon of American
filibuster
society.
Is not something. Filibuster is something that was decided upon by the themselves. The Senate, the whole filibuster thing is not a rule, all right, or it's not a federal law. It's not part of the Constitution of the United States. That was something the senators for themselves got together and created.
Of course they did, yet they still treat it like it's the ultimate law. Anytime they don't like something, I'm going to filibuster it.
Well, but once again, they can change that, and it has been changing lately. All right, it has been changing because the idea that they've had within the Senate, all right, is no longer the filibuster is no longer working for that process. All right, so I wouldn't necessarily put in something that says the filibuster can't go, because I still want to give each legislature or each house the ability to change it. The other thing that I would do within this government right now, right, is I would sit up there and remove, all right, 3/4 of the federal bureaucracy. I would immediately say, okay, this is gone. If you want these things in place, this has now been filtered as a responsibility to the states.
And you better fucking find Dr.
If I was in charge of the
like
Constitutional
Convention, because that's the only way certain shit's going to get done. And I'm not saying, and I don't support a totalitarian or a dictatorship, but you need somebody like Dr. Doom to basically come and say, you know what, this shit hasn't worked. We're doing it this way, whether you like it or not. Too bad, blah, 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 and that's the way it is.
Well, that's why I think that if you call a convention of states and you just sit up there and immediately start restricting or saying this part is now removed, this part is now gone, this part is now removed, it's the only way that people's representation can affect that kind of change that you're talking about. Where before, everyone, as soon as in Congress right now, Congress is frozen because they don't want to reduce their power. All right. The only way you can reduce the power of the federal government is if the states say, no, we're going to reduce the power, and here's how. And this is the legal process by which it can be done. If you go into a Dr. Doom scenario where a single individual starts to do that, then whether you like it or not, you're in a tyrannical environment. And whether or not that individual, while he's in charge, good things happen. As soon as he's gone, it's very possible that a bad person comes in there and then totally abuses the people like the Roman emperors.
You're very correct. I think what I ultimately am trying to get to, and maybe I didn't make it expressly clear enough, is maybe we need somebody along the lines of Dr. Doom to come in and do that just to shake people out of their apathy. And again, I'm not right. I could be completely wrong. The point is, we are being apathetic.
It didn't shake them out of the apathy when it came to that, because most of the people will defer to power. And if the military in those kind of situations becomes the power, then you have a military junta or a military dictatorship. Well, even if the military doesn't technically have one of their own in charge, it's still a military dictatorship. That's the same thing you got right now in Venezuela, where you have the military, for all intents and purposes, is in charge. All right?
Okay,
People don't like that.
See, that's a prime example of I can admit to being wrong. And I'm good with that. I learned something today.
So, No, you asked what my solutions are. These are my solutions.
All right, let me write this down.
MC
August 13th, 2017.
Oh, shut up.
Zero Cool Mix was incorrect. I'd like you to sign this one.
And Mark note on the same day, I still have more thicker hair than Razor Fist. Not as beautiful, but thicker.
He'll be on. We gotta have you swing by, and we can maybe talk about that for a minute. Oh yeah, because there's a difference between thick and good. But yeah, this has been fun, boys. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna hang out. I got some things to do on this Sunday. It's one of my work days, first day of the week, to every Jew everywhere in the world. So it's, you know, but it's been fun. I think it was necessary for me to talk about what went down there in Virginia, Charlottesville.
Honestly, my final thoughts on the whole thing are I'm disappointed in every single one of them. And I'm more so disappointed that the person, that this idiot James, thought it was such a necessity to behave like such an asshole and take a person's life, whether you agreed with that person's political ideology or not. It's bullshit. It's an embarrassment to us as Americans, and we've got to get to the point where we're saying enough is enough and take control back from everybody else.
The guy's a murderer.
Okay? Yeah, he is.
The fact is the guy's a murderer.
Did you miss the first part? Did you miss the first part where I went on a rant?
No, I caught part of it. I didn't catch.
Yeah, okay. Well, you pretty much caught the crux of it. He's a fucking idiot. He deserves to go to jail. But in the long run, this whole thing was a fucking waste, and it cost a life, and it hurt others. Religious or political ideology aside, it was just fucking useless and a waste of time.
It was a waste for you. It was a waste for America, but it wasn't a waste for the alt-right. Don't make that.
I know.
Assault.
No, I'm not. Hey, I'm not assuming. I'm just saying again from my own viewpoint because that's all I know.
Let's do this. This is what I like to do. I think Zero. It's been a while since we've done a stream. This is how I like to end it. MC.
I'll let MC go first.
Okay. So you just give up a good opportunity to MC was going to want to. What I like to do is let everybody put their little bow on everything. And to be fair, you weren't here the whole time. He did. He went on a whole thing about how he broke all the laws of how to drive a car, the laws of physics, the laws of God, and the laws of society. And he doesn't. I don't think he thinks too much of this person. But let's do that then. Take as much time as you feel, MC, and just put a bow on today, and I'll wrap it up. We'll go with you, and then Zero Cool. And
well, he did violate a lot of laws. He demonstrated the laws of physics, but he didn't violate them. Okay, but no. The thing is what worries me more than anything else is that there's too many people right now that look at what happened in Charlottesville, and yeah, they say it was a waste. They say nothing good's going to come of this, which is true. All right, but you have to understand and you have to be prepared to look at it from the standpoint of the people that you are dealing with right now. All right, to step back and try and put yourself in their shoes, and this goes back both for Antifa and their groups, the BLM, and you have to step back and take a look at it from the alt-right, which was also there. From both of their perspectives, both of those groups think that they've gained. In fact, it's not that they think they've gained; they have. There are now going to be more adherents to both groups. They are going to grow in power. They're going to grow in strength. So you can say, yeah, it's a waste. You can say, oh, you know, it was just a disaster. Not from the way they look at things. They increase power, both sides. So if you're going to say, well, it was a waste, then what you're doing is you're basically going, well, nothing really came of this. You know, it was just a disaster. No, both sides increased power. This means that this is going to continue and get worse. Okay, this wasn't a waste from that perspective. People have got to understand you're going to have to stand up to this shit, and not just on one side. All right, you're going to have to stand up to this on both sides. But we're at a rabbit hole now where people just want to play, well, pox on both houses. You're going to have to get involved. You're going to have to start demanding that your local officials act correctly. And it's going to have to be vocal, and it's going to have to be demonstrative. And that's all I got to say.
I'm kind of on the flip side with this. I don't disagree with everything, even a small fraction of what MC has said. The only thing the reason I believe it is a waste is because waste our potential as a society to continue to grow and be something great while we're having and I don't say the words petty bickering lightly, because it's not petty on a certain scale, but in the grand scheme of things as our nation, it's another petty skirmish which should and could have been avoided had people decided to act like the adults they claim to be. A person's life was lost, and while I am a vehement supporter of the death penalty, that if you commit a murder, you should be killed after getting a trial by jury of your peers in a court of law, this person chose to go to the extreme. And yes, MC is correct. Both sides gained something from this. The rest of us lost more than we thought. But a person died. 19 people were injured. 5 of those 19 were critical. And then 2, I believe, sheriffs died in a helicopter crash. Is that correct?
Yeah, but that was, I think, an accident. Yes.
State police. They were the
state police. And even though that's not directly related to the James acting like a complete fucking psychopath, this whole mess, had it not happened, 3 people would still be alive and 19 people would not be injured. This is what I mean by it is a waste. It is the culmination of our worst behaviors defined and personified as a species, and most specifically as our country, which loves to say it's the greatest in the world. And on a certain level, we are. We seem to be the greatest country in the world at heading to a countdown to extinction, which is avoidable. And that's all I'm going to say. We are better than this, period. Let's start acting like it.
All right. And I'm going to go out of my way not to make a whole lot of commentary on people's subjective opinions or subjective, their thoughts or ideals, their life experiences. So there's not much I could say to either thing that's either of the points that MC or Zero made, because, I mean, how can you argue somebody's subjective opinion? I hope everybody understands that. But before I give my subjective opinion, I just want to point out that Mad Woman Muses is kind of a pretty funny chick. She does news in the morning. She likes to make lots of jokes about coffee, and you can kind of see her when she starts. She looks very tired and whatnot, and then she does guzzle coffee and ends up perking up. But she's got a pretty good handle on the news, too, if you like that kind of thing and you're free in the mornings. I'm talking about, I'd say she usually goes on somewhere around 9 or 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the morning, a.m. So if you're up and around and looking for a stream around that time, go ahead and check her out. Why am I saying that? A, she is funny and all the things that I just mentioned. But also, she just randomly asked me for my information, and when we did church and police state, and I gave it to her, and she gave me a nice plug. And you know, this is a person that no really reason to be my friend or anything like that. Actually hangs around people that probably don't like me. Definitely don't like me. I mean, I didn't beat around the bush. And she's just that kind of person where she doesn't let that kind of thing dictate. I believe I'm that way too. I am that way. I don't care who your friends are. If we get along, we get along. It's just that way. And Mad Woman Muses is definitely that. So I'm going to also see, I showed you what her thing looked like. So let me send the link out again. Check her out, man. She's pretty funny. Her husband joins her pretty often in the morning, and they work really well together. They really do. She's a little more, I won't say out there, because you just have to check them out. Check them out. So that said, look, whether it's this issue of black and white, this divide and conquer, there's a Hegelian dialectic being portrayed on the American people right now, being used against the populace, being used against the society. It's problem, reaction, solution. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, if you want to be really smarty pants. And so what they want is they want more control over society. So they perpetuate the idea that black and white people don't like each other. Blacks are downtrodden. There's a white institutional racism. I have to think about it, because institutional racism, I think we all know that if there is any, it's the worst against the Chinese. And institutional racism would favor black folks, Native Americans, not white Europeans. But anyway, this Hegelian dialectic is happening. Who's making it happen? Well, we do know that George Soros has given a lot of money to Media Matters, to Black Lives Matter. You say whatever reasons. We believe he's given a lot of money to Antifa. He can have his own reason. Maybe he says that he's, but it all comes down to power, being able to control society. I don't know if Darren Brown, like, they hypnotized this guy and got him wrong. I don't know what this guy. In other words, I'm not saying this is some kind of CIA mind control plant. They said, you know, Moonlander, and he went apeshit and drove his car into a group of people. I don't believe that. He probably was working under his own autonomy and making his own decisions at the time. Because I've heard false flag and all these things thrown around. What I do know has happened, that I've witnessed already, is there's people that are definitely playing both sides. Could I say whether they were Antifa or whether they were this alt restore the whatever it was, restore the white, whatever it is. I don't know, but they were pictures of them wearing both uniforms in the same day. So they're rabble rousers. This is something that's contrived. Goodness sake, let's remember that what they're trying to do, or what I believe the vice mayor is going to end up have happen, is to remove a statue of General Lee. Come on, people. When we see this going down in the United States of America, no matter how you feel about it or which side you support, if you support a side, all those morons down there are Americans. And that's what kills me. We don't want another. Didn't we learn anything? We should keep General Lee up so we remember the Civil War. If you want to say that it's glorifying the South, you're a fool. Will they ever take Albert Pike, the statue of Albert Pike, the great Southern general down from Washington, D.C.? I doubt it, but he wrote Morals and Dogmas for the Masons, didn't he? So instead of rambling on for another hour, I'll just tell you this. Call it conspiracy theory if you want. Call it whatever you want. They are out to create a new world order at any cost. And for them to be able to do it, to get you to need them. No one willingly goes into any kind of slavery unless they're in dire straits indeed. So look, folks, be good to your friends and your family members. Be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge you'll never be able to forget about it. Because look, constant viewer, you already know it. At a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life and Antifa will depart from you.